So guys, what if Naruto was Infinity Demigod in high school DxD had harem special movie? Las Vegas, the city of dreams where humans crowd the streets. Looking for entertainment in all kind of casinos, theaters, and clubs that the city held. Sounds of rattling coins that professional casinos participants loot off of the amateurs who thought that Lady Luck would grant them a ray of luck in their pitiful life could be heard through the open casino's entrances. Few of those who walked outside of the buildings of the Wheel of Fortune were enthralled by the cheers of those who's won a play, and without a second thought they entered the casino, hoping and praying to any deity that they would make something out of their pitiful life by winning a few plays, and left this building with a small fortune. But the owner of the casino knows better. They will never win. Shaking his head, a young man quietly laughed in amusement at the poor souls who entered the Lotus Casino while he let himself guided to his next destination by the sea of crowds that gently pulled him along with them. Above the heads of the humans, a light show could be spotted, flickering on and off and basking them in brilliant, bright light and occasionally an explosion of fireworks. Beautiful, the man thought while a gentle breeze of air graced his face, pushing a stray bang of snow-white hair out of his handsome chiseled, slightly tinted face. The fireworks exploded in different shapes. Some looks like palm trees, others are a dancing call girl, and another are a number of casino's coins. All around him the crowd cheered and owed at the right time when one of them exploded and formed different figures in the air. Hecate did a wonderful job with this place, or better said with her fireworks, basking for a few full minutes in the artistic work of his friend. The young man let a small smile grace his face as he stepped out of the sea of humans and entered the casino. Lotus Casino. At the entrance the two doormen who were disguised bodyguards bowed slightly towards him as he returned the gesture with a slight nod of his head, and the guards are still cordial. Why? I thought they would block me, especially after the last time I was here. Milord. Welcome to our humble casino. Lotus Casino, one of them said in a way of greeting to him that made him inwardly curious, seeing the guard push the door open and held it open for the young man while motioning him to enter the casino. The mistress of magic awaited you. She did, commented the young man curiously with a slightly raised eyebrow while his small smile now formed in one of amusement. Thank you, sir. If you excuse me, I think that I will not let her wait a minute longer. Having said his part, the young man entered the casino. His bright sapphire with a white flower-patterned eyes roamed the hallways, noticing several humans from different timelines. Some of these humans are wearing dresses that would seem completely normal in the Victorians' time, other from the time of the 80s, especially that dark-skinned man with his huge afro, stepping aside to avoid a group of teenagers. Turning around slightly on the ball of his feet, the young man's eyes studied them. One is a boy no older than 12, raven black hair that refused to be tamed with under the bangs a pair of bright sea-green eyes. Next to this boy was a girl, slightly older than him with dirty blonde hair, a pair of bright, very intellectual eyes that were at the moment stormy. Well, demigods here in the Lotus Casino. How intriguing. Maybe Hecate is in a good mood and will share her tale with me. Resuming his pace while he leaked a bit of his will that made the humans and any supernatural occupants step aside for him. Reaching the stairs that would lead him to the first, second and finally the office of the goddess who had summoned for one of her reasons, a waitress passed him and quickly the young man picked up a glass of high-valued wine that is made by the wine god, Dionysus, sipping from the wine and savor the unique taste that nowhere else in the world can be found, except if you have luck and find Dionysus' secret stash somewhere in this world. Grinned the youthful-looking man when he reached the last floor and entered the office of Hecate. About time you arrived, Naruto. The man now named Naruto smiled while the glass in his hand disappeared from existence and a pair of sapphire blue eyes with a white flower pattern rested on a very attractive, well-endowed woman. Her flowing dark brown hair rested on her shoulders, a pair of firm, round breasts that are held firmly together in her dress, making them 3 times larger. Lowering his eyes, past her slim waist, wide, full round hips and long elegant legs before they snapped back to her face, seeing that she held an amused expression. And thank you, dear. I can see that you still held my beauty in high regards. No matter how long we were separated, you stay one of the most beautiful women I have ever met, Naruto commented while moving towards her and planted a kiss on her cheek before grasping her hand lightly in his and guided her towards the bench that looks out over the casino below. But what is so important that you needed to call my assistance, sis? Hecate elegantly lowered herself on the couch. When she made herself comfortable she conjured several snacks and some soft drinks that appeared on the small stand. I know that you had a hand in the escape of the Nekomata race. Don't take me wrong, the goddess hurriedly said when she noticed the flare in her brother's eyes. I am glad that your action saved a lot of innocents' life. Without you, the Nekomata would have certainly been extinct, but I need to ask you something, a few favors. Naruto picked a few walnuts, cracked them open with his bare hands and offered her some which she accepted gratefully before he took some himself. His curiosity has been spiked again. Why are you asking for a few favors? So far I know, you are not one of the goddesses that like to be in someone's debt, especially a few debts. The goddesses savored the walnuts while gathering her thoughts. Once she gently gulped down and washed her mouth with a sip of her orange juice, she answered, "You are right, Naruto. I as the goddess of magic and crossroads does not like to be in someone's debt, but several days ago a lone member of the Nekomata race entered this place and pleaded for help. I could refuse her of course, but by that time I had already gained the news what happened to her race and assured that she is safe here. Hecate, I know that the massacre was a ruse from the Devil's faction to gain enough unwilling test subjects for their experiments. And if I know you well enough, you know that I used that ruse to rescue the Nekomata race. What of course was a complete success." Hecate nodded slightly with her head while she listened to her brother figure. For the past days, the goddess of crossroads and magic had laughed when she discovered when her brother cunningly rescued them, using a massive army of blood clones that are henge like them, while I used that distraction to safely spirit them away from the underworld. But I sense that I am summoned to here because I have left some loose ends? Hecate nodded. She always knew that her brother figure was smart. Yes, while you did a well-done job in the underworld. There were two things that happened unexpectedly. A young Nekomata who has the better word evolved to a Nekosho. A rare breed of her race as she gained the ability to wield the mythical power of Chakra. The young man nodded to her story, not seeing yet where this would lead to. This person discovered the massacre plan at the same time as you, but also something else. Something that froze her blood in fear. Naruto leaned slightly forward, indicating that she now had his full intention. They were planning to start with the young person's sister. This of course caused the person in a frenzy, and with a desperate plan she tried to rescue her sister by first killing her former king. And she succeeded in killing that bastard but did not succeed in rescuing her sister. Interjected and completed Naruto her sentence with a cold edge. Not towards her were the feelings of absolute doom. No, they were reserved for the devil faction. Still, in his cold voice, he continued, now with the idea that the Nekomata are obliterated, they are trying to keep a hold on the so-called last Nekomata, hoping that she too like her elder sister will evolve to a Nekosho and experiment or use her as a breeding machine. The goddess of magic lowered her head, knowing what will comes next is something she will regret. In a small, weak voice she voiced out her heart-wrenching thought. You can't rescue her sister, Naruto. Naruto, who was in half the process to teleport away, appeared back in the corner of the couch, several seats away from her, eyes, now a deep dark pool, while a heavy pressure fell on her shoulders and her breathing became labored. The male's Adonis face cracked. A being, so terrifying than a devil, more than God or any higher being revealed himself, and in a low, cold Antarctic voice, the infinite God hissed out. What did you just say? Must I let that poor child in the hands of those miserable insects? Letting both the sisters suffer only because you asked a favor from me by not saving her? Explain now. Hecate's dark eyes widened in fear when she felt the oppressing will of her brother figure seeped in her office, pressing her down in the soft cushion of her couch that now more felt like a rock with several spikes that pressed painfully into her skin. She noticed that the walls slowly vanished when a dark haze raised in the corner and his voice. Naruto's voice resemblances a thunder, still, in the same low, quiet and weak voice, she explained, the elder Nekomata sister. Kuroka managed to reel in a favor that the Lord of House of Lucifer still owed her, demanding that her younger sister will be taken in by the Gremory House, more especially becoming a peerage member of the heiress of said house. You must know that the Gremory House and current House of Lucifer take care of their peerage members like they are part of the family. Knowing this, Kuroka managed to organize the safest place for her. The oppressing dark will of her brother figure reeled back into his body, bringing some light back that made Hecate sigh in relief. She knew that this was a gambling last time, and that was not with her brother turning this enraged. But that was a rightful anger that was caused by a foolish young god. An idiotic sun god who loves to sing poems and is a siscon who happened to accidentally knock over Naruto's ramen. Her casino/hotel was ruined for a day. She still got tears when she thinks back to that day. On the 7th day of the 7th month 7 days ago. Quickly she shook her head to clear her thoughts of such an unfortunately day. Hecate noticed that her brother figure had calmed down. Or maybe better worded, shimmer under the surface. Maybe it would be safe to quickly elaborate in a more understanding way. I know that this image that I painted seems unfair for Kuroka and her younger sister. But at the moment the eldest is an international supernatural criminal, searched by the 3 biblical factions, while the 3 factions are now searching for her. The Yukai faction is at the moment also in peril. Here Naruto tilted his head curiously. masking his emotions that want to burst out and lash out at the devil and angel factions. For the latest, he doesn't care if they are dark or light, they will die when he see them in justified kill or hunt someone down. With the increase of the yokai population back in Kyoto when you rescued the Nekomata, they too will soon earn the 3 biblical wraths only because the devil will believe that they are all criminals and will be marked for death. So, I had left them alone and let them in justified be killed by a bunch of fools. Is that what you tried to tell me? Naruto growled lowly from his throat. His eyes flashed dangerously, and Hecate knew she wasn't out of the wood yet. She didn't know if it was wise to explain everything now, especially now he is in this state. A moment nothing was said between the two, a good or bad sign. She didn't know, but when he motioned for her to continue she sighed inwardly. Please, continue. Hecate conjured new drinks before she resumed her explanation. With the devil faction now having marked the Nekomata, and Yusaka having extended a helping hand towards them now they are finally out of the underworld's grasp, she can extend asylum to them, granting them protection so long if they stay in Kyoto. And here comes another part of the bad news. Naruto. Yusaka can only grant them such a promise only if Kuroka will not set a foot in her city. Flashing brightly cold, his eyes, dangerously evidently when outside her office several cries could be heard and explosions. Another silence fell between them while Naruto pushed himself up and moved towards the window and gazed down at the gathered semi-immortals below. In his baritone voice he spoke to her. I understand, Hecate. It is not your nor is it mine fault that they are such fools, but tell me, and I want the truth, is Kuroka's sister safe? She is. I personally looked after the crossroad of her, started the goddess of magic and crossroads with conviction. No harm will come to her, I can promise that at least. Naruto inclined his head, conjuring a glass in his hand and took a sip. Can you summon Kuroka the stray devil and my future apprentice? Hecate could not help to smile brightly at her brother figure when he decided to take her in. There are of course many other ways, one of them being Kuroka joining Olympus, but the goddess thinks that this is something they both need. She snapped her fingers, a sound resounded through the office and not a mere second later the door opened and Kuroka stepped through the entrance and came to a halt next to the couch. In a gentle, soft voice, Hecate welcomed her. Welcome Kuroka. Do you know who I am, and why I have summoned you? Kuroka is a beautiful and attractive young teenage girl with a starting figure. Long black hair with split bangs, and hazel gold eyes with cat-like pupils. She wears a black kimono, a yellow obi. The kimono features a red interior and it is slightly open at her shoulders, giving slightly view at her starting breasts. At the moment she looked confused and slightly afraid, especially from the person who stands at the window, watching the view below him. From him, she could feel a raging inferno that would blast her apart if that massive power Nekomata at her. With a weak, lifeless voice she answered Hecate, "Nya, I don't know the answer for both of your question, sorry." "Don't worry sweetheart, it is not your fault you don't know who I am or why I summoned you to my office. But let me introduce myself, you might have heard of me. My name is Hecate, goddess of crossroads and magic is one of the most favorably known titles that is attached to my name." Here the catgirl's eyes widened at the now known goddess. She slightly shook on her place when it now took place in her mind that she stands in close proximity with a strong deity. When nothing happened her shaking slowly receded before it completely disappeared from her body when she noticed that her voice was kind to her when she entered the office. "Come, Kuroka, please sit with me." The Nekosho slowly slid next to the goddess on the couch, keeping a wary eye on the only male that still stands like a statue, watching the world outside the window. When she asserted that the male would do nothing to her she focused her gold cat-like eyes back on the goddess who resumed her talk. "My brother and I have conversed for a long time about you, my dear." Kuroka could not help the widening of her eyes at this revelation and slowly her cat-like curiosity roared her head. "I will say and repeat as many times you want, you have nothing to fear from us, we have learned about your predicament, and not only of yours." "Sharon," gasped Kuroka, interrupted the goddess and for a moment, Kuroka feared for her life only to earn a reassuring smile from the Hecate. "Sharon is a very adorable name for your sister," smiled Hecate, lifting her lone index finger to Kuroka's lips, silencing her, "and I am sorry. For now, we can do nothing for her. You, Kuroka did already a lot for you sister, providing her safety by placing her under the leading house of the underworld, and this oath, yes Kuroka, what you claimed is an oath, if they broke it they will be cursed terribly, so, Sharon is safe for now." Kuroka's eyes watered. Tears streamed down her cheek and she suddenly slammed her face in the goddess' chest. Crying out her fear and worry for her sister, Hecate caressed the Nekomata hair gently, rocking her gently like a caring mother would do to her daughter, and for a while, nobody said a word and only the quiet cries of Nekomata could be heard. Her tears slowly stopped, drying up when Hecate wiped them away gently and wrapped her arms around the frail form of the catgirl, hugging her until she had recovered. "You did well Kuroka, All those negative emotions needed to get out. Know this, Kuroka. You are always welcome here in the Lotus Casino. The cat girl, not trusting her voice, buried her face back in the woman's chest, who only could smile at the girl. If you have recovered enough, I want to tell you some things and a possible trainer for you that helps you in obtaining control over your chakra. Nya? Kuroka cried out surprisingly at all the good things that suddenly happened around her. Her head shot out of the very soft, round globes of the goddess and locked at said goddess' eyes for confirmation about gaining a trainer for controlling her chakra. Why? Why will you go so far for me, a stray devil? There is nothing wrong in trying to rescue your sister, even if that means that you need to kill your former master. For the first time she heard the male speak. Turning her head, she gained a faint tint on her cheeks at how handsome he is. You know my sister figure, Hecate. As for me, I am Naruto, the infinite primordial god, or also known as the ten-tailed god or Jubi, and after this, you might call me sensei. Nya. The Nekosho cried out with pure surprise clearly heard in her voice. Her hazel gold cat-like eyes widened at her first view of one of the most powerful beings in the universe. A being that could wipe out the world populace with his small pinky. Hazel golden eyes drowned in the presence of this perfect male. The infinite primordial god standing there a few feet away from her with his height of 5.5 feet. Well-defined, muscular chest, flat well-toned stomach and arms that could bend metal. Studying her future sensei, Kuroka could see the snow-white hair that so strongly reminded of her Chiron. His lightly brown-tanned skin made his hair stand out more, especially his eyes. A chuckle broke one-line thought about how handsome he is, and with a red-tainted face, Kuroka buried her face back in the soft, firm breasts of Hecate, who could only giggle at her. How can this be? The infinite primordial god being my sensei? Is this possible a dream? You looked cute, Kuroka, blushing and all. Her cat ears caught his so alluring baritone voice that made her heart skip a step. This only increased her already crimson face. And if that was not enough, the mistress of magic played with her hair like her mother did in the past. She buried her face deeper in those wonderful breasts while he kept talking. I had never such a cute little apprentice. Definitely worthy of learning my skills from me. Something I do not easily part with. Come, let Hecate do her things and I will teach some things that give you a better insight about chakra. Naruto stepped towards the pair and gently parted them. He smirked at the cute pout that Hecate sent his way. Untangle Kuroka's arms from her waist. Naruto lifted her up from the goddess' lap and placed her against his chest, earning a more defined blush when she noticed in what position she laid in his arms. Nya. Where are we going, sensei? Kuroka blushed. She feels like a small girl here in his broad, strong arms who were wrapped gently around her, carrying her bridal style out of Hecate's office. We will go to my room. I will there explain about our powers that will help you endeavor in the future. Her mind short-circuited when the words his and room planted in her mind. The chakra source in your body is extraordinary massive. Sensei, Nya. I am not ready yet, Nya. She buried her face now in his chest. A rumbling sound boiled up in her throat, purring when her sensei's warmth enveloped her. Kuroka felt her heart speeding up in her chest, her starting breast swelling and flushing against his, and a certain heat starting in her stomach. His room, he and I alone, together, Nya. Before she could fall deeper in the gutter, her mind blackened out in protection, while Naruto could only chuckle at her. Such a kawaii kahai I have. His eyes flared up and the pair became intangible and moved through the door of his room. Arriving in a large, well-furnitured living room that would not stand out with several of the wealthiest and influenced humans and supernaturals in the world. Moving to the couch and lowering her unconscious form on the soft cushions and tugged her in. Sleep for a while, Kuroka-chan. When you wake up, a meal is waiting for you before we can discuss in a deeper part of your training. Naruto softly commented to the sleeping girl. Turning on his heel, he moves towards his desk and picked up the phone. Hi Ikumi. Naruto-chan. How are you doing? It has been a while that you called me. Naruto deadpanned at hearing his friend's claim. Did you miss my cooking that much, Naruto-kun? But don't ya worry. I fix something up and bring it to your love. Naruto hung his head at hearing her until he heard her talking about fixing something before she will arrive at his door. Quickly he shouted through the phone. Wait, Ikumi. Let me sum up the li. At the other end, Ikumi laughed and cut him off. I know what you want, Naruto-kun. One massive bowl filled to the brim with that delicious food that you call affectionately ramen. Am I right, love? Yes, but started the primordial only by cut off by someone else on the other end of the line. Hanging his head low again, Naruto groaned quietly at the second voice that belongs to Arena. Is that Naruto-kun on the line? Ohio, Naruto. What can I do for you? Move aside, Ikumi. Shut up, Arena. I was here first. Ikumi shouted through the line. And within moments the two girls were fighting, and sounds of explosions, desperation cries of the chefs, and thud sounds of food falling on the floor reached his ears. Sighing, Naruto moved the phone away from his ear and moved his thumb to hang up the line when a new voice entered the room through the phone. Alice here, Naruto. I want to ask how you are doing because I am short on time with those two crazy girls trying to kill each other and everyone else in the kitchen. Hi Alice. Well, I will be quick. I want a full course of all kind of Asian buffet for my guest, myself and you, if you join us in an hour. Is that all right with you? Naruto quickly told her, disregarding his early list that he had mentally prepared, but seeing, no, let me correct that. Hearing the chaos at the other end of the line, he changed the idea. No problem, and I would love to join you and your guest. Naruto, let me punish my foolish little sister and Ikumi, and place them on the cleaning duty while I prepare your food. See you in an hour, kiss, Alice commented and ended with a kiss sound before she hung up. Denying him to hear the indignant cries of Ikumi and Arina, shrugging his shoulders, Naruto turned around and a smile formed on his handsome face when he noticed Kuroka awake, sitting right up on the couch with her legs folded under her. You had passed out, Kuroka, but I am glad to see you well. I have ordered some Asian food. Hope you will like it. If you don't mind, we can already start with a small introduction about our powers. Chakra. Sorry about that. NYA, apologized Kuroka, blushing furiously when the stray thoughts returned and fought them, hoping not to pass out again. Her twin tails swayed behind her nervously. And I don't mind Asian food, NYA. Good, Naruto commented while let himself drop next to her and faced Kuroka. Alice will be here within an hour, so let the time count for us. I want to share some thought about chakra with you. How you can call upon our powers, and what chakra can do for us. Kuroka nodded shyly with her head, a faint blush on her face. I am sure that you know about some key knowledge of chakra. Chakra is created when two other forms of energy, known collectively as one stamina, are molded together. Physical energy is collected from each and every one of the body's cells and can be increased through training, stimulants, and exercise. Spiritual energy is derived from the mind's consciousness and can be increased through studying, meditation, and experience. These two energies becoming more powerful will, in turn, make the created chakra more powerful. Therefore, you and I will practicing together repeatedly and will build up experience, increasing your spiritual energy, and thus allowing more chakra to be created. As a result, you, my dear apprentice, will be able to do in the near future techniques like me. Repeating this cycle and training your physical energy, you will become the strongest pupil I ever had. Did you follow me so far? Kuroka slowly nodded. She was in a bit of a daze. For so long she heard from the devil that has been her master that chakra was only pure negative. Nothing a word of what her sensei told her what chakra actually is. Slowly a smile formed on her face that in a span of a minute widened to a full smile. Thank you, sensei. I never thought that I would meet someone that is so experienced in my powers. I promise to you, sensei, that I will work hard to meet your expectations, NYA. It was nothing, Kuroka. But please ask me if you need help. If not, then let us plan your training. I promise it will not be easy, and sometimes you will curse my training method, Naruto started to say to his first pupil and paused to let her finish what he had thought. Kuroka noticed this and smiled. But I will endure for my sister. I will train hard, and when I have become strong enough, I'll steal Sharon back, NYA. We will, Kuroka, that I promise. Now that we have still had some time left, we can plan your training. For now, we stay in the Lotus Casino, a place where time is frozen. Or better said, is placed out of the normal time stream. 8 hours is 5 days in the normal world, but we can ask Hecate for a wing of the Lotus Casino which reversed the time. Instead of losing 5 days in 8 hours, we will gain 5 days in 8 hours, lengthening your training days while in the world outside of the Lotus Casino. Move at a snail pace. Kuroka's eyes widened at the ingenuity plan of her sensei. It almost sounds like the hyperbolic time chamber of one of that foolish red-haired heiress mangas. That is unbelievable, sensei, NYA. Kuroka commented with a wide smile, wondering how strong she would become in 1 year of training with her sensei by using something like that. Now giddy with the idea of mastering her chakra, she wondered what her sensei would teach her. When are we going to start, sensei? Knock. Knock. The sounds of rasping her of his knuckles against the surface of the door earned their attention, and Naruto quickly stepped off the couch and with elegant stride he reached the door, pushing down the handle and pulling the door open to let a very attractive young woman enter the suite. Hey Alice. Please come in. It was about time you arrived with the food. Naruto's loud voice resounded through the suite that easily reached Kuroka's sensitive ears. Alice stepped in the suite, pushing a cart full of Asian cooking, and she stopped next to the couch. Behind her, Naruto quickly closed the door and resumed his position next to Kuroka. Kuroka, this is Alice Nakiri, one of the best chefs in the world, and one of my best friends. The cat girl gazed with her hazel golden eyes at the very attractive young woman. Her silver short hair with a long left bang of hair that initially reaches the bottom of her chin. She also has fair skin and a large bust, showing a bit of cleavage with her chosen uniform. Her pair of red eyes gazed her warmly and her smile is pleasant. Alice. This is my new kahai, Kuroka the Nekosho. A pleasure of meeting you, Kuroka. Alice welcomed the cat girl, extending her hand in welcome and friendship. I can assure you that Naruto has seen something in you to take you under his wing. After all, my friend here does not take suddenly an apprentice. I am a bit jealous of you. Nya. Arigato Alice-san, Kuroka said when shaking her hand, and she retracted her hand. The cat girl noticed a whole banquet full of water-mouthing food that made her eyes sparkle. Quickly the whole stand was full. On every empty space was now a plate full of food, and Alice filled 3 cups full of sake. Grasping a cup in her hand and raised it in the air with Alice and Naruto following her, her new sensei and Alice gazed reassuring at her. Motioned with their cups to have the honor. Feeling all her insecurity fade away, she held her cup firmer in her hand, and with a cheerful of renewed confidence she shouted, Nya, Kampai. Kampai. Naruto and Alice chorused in unison, throwing the cup backward and drained the cup of its content. Slamming their cups down on the stand and filled their plates with Peking duck, pad thai, rice, some Chinese vegetables, and picking their chopsticks and started to eat. Several hours passed when Kuroka, Alice, and Naruto enjoyed a meal together. They were later joined by Hecate, who was a bit miffed that they tried to hide such a banquet feast away from her. The goddess of crossroads and magic slurred with a thick tongue, obviously drunk. Ha, that hit, hick. The, hick. Spot. More sake, hick. Sake, hick. For AK, kingdom, hick. Alice slurred, swaying with her arm height in the air, spraying sake through the air. Her eyes were glazed over. A crimson blush contradicted from her tanned skin. AK. Kingdom for AB. Bottle of sake, hick. Naruto gazed at them, throwing a bottle of sake down his throat. A sheepish smile plastered on his smile while holding Kuroka in his lap. Nay, Kuroka. How do you find it so far here with us in the Lotus Casino? I like it here, but the thought of leaving my little sister in the hand of those devils fills me with fear. What they were planning to her, to my little Chiron, is so terrifying, and all I can do is sit here in training, Kuroka said while gazing out of the window to the casino floor below. Nya, sensei, will Chiron ever forgive me for what I had done? Sobering up, Naruto wrapped his arms around Kuroka's frame, pushing her firmly against his chest, and rested his chin on the top of her head. With his voice full of conviction he responded, your little sister, Chiron, will someday forgive you because she will understand why you had done for what you did, and if she does not believe you, then I will help you until she will. Kuroka smiled at her sensei, feeling warm and protected here in his arms. Well, train you. Then we will find evidence for their sinister plans with your race, and then Chiron and you will reunite. Rom, antically, no, thing hick, is better than, hick. Incest, Hecate slurred with a thick tongue as she rubbed herself off against Naruto's shoulder and rubbed her face against Kuroka's face. Nya. Cried out Kuroka, mortified at the thought alone. Her twin, black fluffy tails became rigged while she desperately tried to push away the goddess. Hecate herself swatted the tails aside, trying to crawl on Kuroka's lap while she kept talking in her drunken state. Bridge, Ea King, hick. The beds, hick. And W, with, his F15 hick. Inch, he pounds yaw. Hecate hiccuped drunkenly. The cup of sake slipped out of her hand and the goddess' head dropped with a thud on the table. Kuroka inches away from the well-known goddess. A pearl of sweat rolled down the side of her head. She tilted her head slightly over her shoulder to look at her sensei with a deadpanned expression marred her face. Kuroka purred when her sensei's hand caressed her cat ears. Leaning more in his hand, she relaxed and her eyes slowly slid shut. Alice pushed herself off the floor with some difficulty, trying to keep the alcohol at bay while she cleaned the table, placing the now empty plates back on the cart. She is a good girl, Naruto, she will get far. Naruto inclined his head in acknowledging. His hand keeps caressing her silky, black hair. You have a good instinct, and so do I. After all, she is my student, laughed the male good-natured while watching Alice placing the last plate on the cart and pushing the cart out of the room. I'll see you next time, and don't be a stranger, Alice, shouted the god after her, at which Alice snorted at him and looked over her shoulder back to him, sending him a lecherous smirk. Oh, I won't be a stranger, Naruto-kun, Alice snorted, slowly closing the door, and before she shut the door, next time it will be more than a late lunch. Naruto turned his eyes away from the door and back to his guest, who was unsurprisingly recovered from all the sake that she drank. The mistress of magic sits straight, head held high and a serious expression on her face. I have heard about your idea of a hyperbolic time chamber to stretch out the days. And you aim to train her for 365 days in this chamber. Of course, I can do as you wish, after all this is my domain, but you want something in return, a favor. Sai Naruto and a stack of files appeared on the desk. Pulling one file towards him and a writing feather appeared in his hand. Alright, let's see what is written down here on the file. Reading through the lines, humming and sometimes nodding while sending her a curious glance. Okay, this contract adds some more favors upon the one that you already asked me for this hyperbolic time chamber, but I'll always use it after a year. That is a positive thought. What do you think, Naruto? Sign or not to sign? Hecate's face had changed, more demonic and a devilish grin gracing her face. Her godly powers and nature now shone more off her and she watched him, patiently, watching him lifting off the feather and bringing the feather to paper. Her smile widened when Naruto signed the contract. Yes. Hecate shouted out. Her form radiated power when the contract duplicated. One for her, one for Naruto, and the last are sent towards the goblins that works at the magical bank. You, my dear, owe me now 9 favors. Naruto growled lowly out of his throat and sent her a heating glare, locking eyes for a few moments before they softened and sighed before sending her a small smile. Playing me again, don't we, Hecate? You haven't changed at all, did you, sis? No, I didn't, but I have seen enough, seeing your temperament slowly been eaten away by the arrogant of the biblical factions. Especially those of the fallen and the devils. If that outburst in my office was something, I don't want to know what would happen if you lose it, said the mistress of magic to Naruto, who now looked at her. I know like you do that if we don't this, the whole race of devil would be exterminated by you, and it will not stop there, fallen will too die out and this goes on. I understand, you have seen a possible future through your crossroads and seers, while I must say that I am not entirely pleased about this, I do understand. Pushing himself up to his feet and placed Kuroka in his arms, bridal style. I expect the wing to be ready tomorrow and then I will see you over 360 days. Hecate's lips stretched out in a smile. I will see you over 360 days. Sleep well, sis. Naruto left the living room to bring Kuroka to the guest room in his living suit, strolling quietly, and pulling Kuroka closer to his chest, because when we return, Kuroka will be strong enough to face a high devil bordering Satan level. The mistress of magic slowly faded out of the living room, twinkling eyes following the pair, and she brought her hand up and snapped his finger. See you over 360 days, brother. When you return out of that part of the Lotus Casino, a few new favors will await you. The next morning, Kuroka stretched out cat-like, arching her back and pressed her bare growing breasts into the air. A purr ran out of her throat while her cat-like ears twitched on the many sounds around her that hung in the air. The sounds of falling water reach her ears, giving her a clue that Naruto, her sensei, took a shower. This is so soft, fluffy and warm. She turned her head to glance out of the window, seeing the massive tower that looks like the Eiffel Tower in Paris. And the view is beautiful. She placed her hands slightly above her waist on the bed and pushed her upper body up until she sits straight in a sitting position. The soft, see-through blanket slid off like a waterfall off her attractive body, showing her growing curves to the world, and she clutched the blanket with her hands and threw the remaining of the blanket off her that still clutched her legs. A new morning, a new start. Let the training begin. NYA. She cried out loudly. A wide smile graced her face when she stepped out of her bed. Her long, raven black hair flowed down her shoulders and reached and stopped at her waist. She blinked several times to banish the sleep out and stepped towards the window to see the world outside with her own hazel golden eyes. But first, let's check if I can claim the shower now. Darting out of the room with her bare, soft feet, Kuroka moved through the hallway, a manicured eyebrow lifted up in a cat-like curiosity. Which hotel room has a hallway inside? She darted on her toes through the hallways, peeking around the corners to steal a look inside. Behind her, Kuroka's tails danced behind her and her hazel golden eyes widened when she sees several weapons hang on the walls. All of them carrying her head to the left. No sensei in sight. Turning her head to the right. Still no sensei in sight. Time to sneak around. NYA. The cat girls sneaked in. Her tails followed her in that caught the attention of a white-haired god who just left the bathroom. Moving through the room, she curiously looked at a very massive broadsword shaped like a giant butcher knife. Under the massive blade, a note could be seen and Kuroka bends forward to read the text. Kabikirabocho, the massive butcher broadsword, a weapon that belonged to Zabuza Momochi, a feared shinobi that had killed over 100 shinobis and was a member of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. May he rest for eternity with his pupil, Haku Momochi. NYA. Why does sensei have such a weapon in his possession? Especially from someone that have killed so many people. Kuroka mused mentally while she glanced a last look at the weapon before she moved towards the next weapon or item that stands on display in the room. This one looks less intimidated. A fan. Something could not hurt a fly. Let's read what the displays say. Gunbai Uchiwa Army Arrangement Fan is a non-folded fan and was wielded by Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Obito, claiming thousands of life in the last Shinobi War. The Gunbai have the ability to absorb any source of power and convert that in wind nature transformation, creating wind disasters. With one sweep of this weapon, a tornado can be created and destroy all in its paths. May they rest forever in their dream world. Kuroka swallowed a bale of saliva down her throat when she finished reading the display. She gazed at the weapon again, this time in a different light than before, and a cold shiver ran down her spine, sending her hair to stand upright. Turning her head to look around, seeing more weapons on display, each one of different size and figures but certainly dangerous. What was sensei, or better said, what did he do to collect all these weapons? Deciding to glance one more time at a weapon to see if this one is as dangerous as all the others that she had read so far. Seeing a sand gourd at the display on what looks like an important pedal, she moved towards the item to read the display note. Sand gourd of Gara, the sand gourd of my brother-in-law. Gara carries a gourd that contained brother's special sand, Tokubetsu sei no Suna. With his sand, he could summon his friend and ally Shukaku. Together they are invincible when they fight in their home country, and can wipe out a whole army. Gara, my first friend and brother-in-law, may you sleep in peace. Sensei had a family, just like me, he had lost his family. Kuroka glanced at the gourd before her eyes fell on a large fan with 3 large purple orbs. Something that called out to her. For a long time she gazed at the massive fan. A faint smile could be seen on her face before she abruptly turned around and left what she now dubbed the weapon room or trophy room. You have now me, Sensei, and I promise you that I will not leave your side, the cat girl softly whispered, that carried towards the kitchen where her sensei waited for her with a whole banquet of food. She entered the kitchen and smiled at the food that stands on display for her, and her sensei sitting behind the table with his arms spread. The scent of your cooking smells delicious. Thank you, Kuroka. Please take a seat, Naruto invited her. And with a strange gleam in his eyes, he watched his cute pupil take a seat opposite of him. Her nimble fingers grasped the chopsticks and broke them before reaching out to a sweet sour roasted pork. Kuroka's chopstick were inches away from her target before Naruto swept away the sweet sour roasted pork away with chopsticks of his own and brought it to his mouth and chewed on the pork. This tastes delicious. Please, my sweet little cat girl, try some more. Nya. Kuroka exclaimed out in surprise when her sensei stole her piece right in front of her. Her eyes slid towards Naruto, narrowing, and glared at him. Quickly her chopsticks lashed out to sweet sour shrimps, and like her previous choice of food, that one too was swept away in seconds. Nya. Sensei, stop stealing my food, Nya, hissed Kuroka in anger. She lashed again with her chopsticks. The tips of her chopsticks shot towards roasted fish, and like before her sensei blocked her again, but this time there was a change. At the last moment her chopstick targeted the sweet sour pork, grasping the food and quickly reeled in and succeeded. Delicious. But that was not nice, sensei. How could you do that to your cute pupil? I can, and I will, my sweet apprentice. Naruto responded between bites of his food, blocking her attempts at food, and she was forced to eat something different. Well, call this survival. Something I had seen in those old, ancient martial arts movies. It looked funny, and I thought, why not? Kuroka groaned at him. Now she held 2 pairs of chopsticks in each of her hands. Quickly she attacked, using one of her chopsticks as a distraction and the other to obtain her chosen one that quickly entered her mouth. Chump, chump, so, chump, this is training. She lashed out with her chopsticks, sending her own chopsticks towards her sensei's hand with the intention to pierce them. I must disappoint you, but I had expected something better, much better. Naruto grinned at her, swallowing some shrimps and pork, followed by a cup of rice. He could see that she is confident, quick on her feet, and see the fun in this. Quickly, and with a small movement of his thumb, he reposted the flying chopsticks, sending them into the wall. Be careful what you ask for, Kuroka. I will let you know that this is just a start. Soon, when we enter the wing or room that Hecate had prepared for us, things will change. What are you planning to start with? Kuroka asked out curiously. Now using 1 pair of chopsticks to get her food, she narrowed her eyes when they fell on the plate of her sensei that was filled with food, and her own, empty. The cat girl's had only chance at getting food in her stomach and none on her plate, while sensei managed to fill both. Nian. How can he be so damn quick? A growl came from her stomach loudly, something that caused her face to turn red in embarrassment. Nya, that was my fish. Naruto let out a laugh, eating her fish right in front of her and chewed slowly, reveling in seeing her frozen face, swallowing, and used his chopsticks to block her own chopsticks to stop her attempts on getting food, while Naruto himself took a sip from his orange juice. Deciding to answer her question about her training, for the first month in the time chamber, we will increase your stamina by training your body. You will run laps, Learn the start of a friend's martial art that I learned from someone, and at the end of each day we will meditate to fuel your chakra source. Let me get something to eat. She hissed out, irritated. Her chopsticks moved slightly faster as they avoided her sensei's own. Kuroka's eyes flared ominously. Out of her back a pair of bat wings shot out, and a dark miasma leaked out of her, causing Naruto quickly to leave his seat and rushed to her side. His fingers illuminated with different flames, and his other hand grasped her arm and slammed her against the wall. Ouch! What are you doing, sensei? Without responding, Naruto slammed his fingers in her stomach. Fingers sunk into her skin and turned clockwise and locked her chakra. Cold sapphire eyes with white flower pattern gazed in her tear-filled hazel golden eyes. Sensei, why are you doing this? Please, explain. The cat girl questioned, tearful. Feeling her chakra leaving her, her eyes stayed locked at that of her sensei. It was her own strong will and courage that helped her to stay strong in the presence of something so enraged and strong. Please. She didn't expect her sensei to curse. A second later her sensei's fingers left her stomach and the pain slowly ebbed away. Another thing she could feel is that her devil wings retracted back, and also her devil powers. Curse them. How could I be so stupid of forgetting this? Explain. Please, sensei. Kuroka cried out. Tears streamed down her face when she still was painfully pressed against the wall. She noticed that his face slowly softened but still held a cold edge in them. My apologies, Kuroka. Sorry that I hurt you and that I blocked your chakra. Here Kuroka's eyes widened in shock, fear, and anger. But I have my reasons, good reasons that I will explain. The cat girl could only gaze at him, waiting for an answer. Your pieces are a kind of bacon to the devil faction. If you use them too much, we will be found in minutes. I needed to stop that, but that was not the worst. Kuroka fear for him now turned to a new level. Not for him, both for the both of them. The power that turned you into a devil is a poison for your chakra, causing you to go berserk when your king wants. But because your king is already death, that function is already triggered, permanently. No. That can't happen to me. Kuroka thought in horror, her face a mask of all the negative emotions, and she could feel a cold grip grasp her heart. If this happens to me, what about my sister Sharon? Calm down, Kuroka. The loud voice of her sensei calmed her slightly. Her body felt less cold and her spirit lifted slightly up. We will find a solution to this, step back, but we will find a solution, and the answer can be found in the underworld. Kuroka could only dumbly nod at her sensei. Her mind was a haze and she wrapped her arms around that of Naruto. Afraid that he would suddenly vanish, something warm and caressing crawled up her skin. Something white with black linings, and she watched how white chakra covered her nude form, and she soon wears a with Otsutsuki kimono. Tilting her head to look at her sensei, who sent her a reassuring eye. Come, Kuroka, my apprentice. Now that we are clothed we will go to Hollywood. Hollywood. The Nekosho could only look at him with a confused expression. All her fear, anger and other negative emotions were pushed away at the strange destination of her sensei. She could not help to blur out. What are we going to do in Hollywood? What we will do there? I'll cash in a favor from an old friend. After all, the entrance to the underworld can be found today in Hollywood. Next please, the ferryman's hollow. A stoic voice called for the next dead spirit that was waiting for the boat to take them to the other side. Namely the lands of the death. His bony hand extended openly, palm up for the drachma, but none landed in his open hand. People had forgotten the old ways, or they rely on the help of the newest religious god, who was arrogantly enough to claim the name, God. Opening his eyes, Karen gazed coldly at the spirit in front of him. No drachma, no ride, now get out of my sight. But sir, the spirit started, intertwining his fingers nervously. My family never knew? Interjected Karen annoyingly. The god of boundaries and territories had heard that kind of excuse a billion times. Every damn time when a new spirit would enter Hades' realm. Of course those stupid mortals didn't know. They forget the old rituals, traditions, all expected to send to heaven or hell or whatever place they had named now for free. If I was you, I would have studied the old ways, and not had listened to that so-called god, ranted Karen when he shooed away a new spirit who joined all the others in waiting. And if you would ask how long they waited, well, don't ask, as all you need to do is look at the clothes, or lack off, and my lord cut off my wager, saying that all the drachma that comes from the newly departed spirit would make me a fortune. They will, if they had them in the first place. Sir? A boy with sea-green eyes squawked out, causing Karen's gaze to drop until it rested on the boy. Leaning over the counter, his bony fingers squeaked when he grasped the edge. From down under his hood, a skeletal voice with hollow sockets pierced the demigod's living body. I have some drachmas for me and my friends. Karen gazed at them, long and hard. His bony index finger scratched his chin and said, I accept the drachmas, but I can't let the living enter the underworld. We are death. "Sir," shouted the female of the group, her long blonde hair wet from her fight with the mythological creature the Hydra who was after them, stupidly believing that she and her friends held the symbolic power of Zeus. "No wonder in my mother's name. If Zeus thinks that Perseus have his weapon, everyone else would believe that too. In Athena's name, they are so dumb." Karen lifted a bony, elegant brow up in surprise, wondering if he imagines things, after all, which living person would visit the underworld on their own free will? Blinking. "How'd I lift an elegant eyebrow if all that remains of me is a skeleton construction?" "Well, never mind." Continue, rubbing his chin for a second time while studying the demigods in front of him. "No, you three reeks of the living, and one of them smells like a hairy, wet donkey." "Hey. I am not a The satyr was interrupted by his blonde female friend who clamped a hand over his mouth. Gray, brilliant eyes fell on her sea-green fellow demigod who gulped slightly under the horrifying gaze of Karen who started to ooze out a negative, death aura. Feeling and seeing the slight supernatural powers coming from Karen, the daughter of Athena mind worked over hours before an idea presented herself. "We drowned." Karen shot back, standing straight at the unexpected confession, his threatening aura of death dispatched, and with razor-sharp grin he spoke. "Drowned? How, I may ask, did you drown, and all at the same time?" "We drowned in the bathtub," the sea-green eyes demigod exclaimed, which earned some exasperated looks from his friends and one from Karen, while in the distance a Nekosho laughed quietly while she buried the arm of her sensei between her growing breasts. The son of Poseidon noticed the disbelieving look of the ferryman. He elaborated. A very massive, large, gigantic bathtub." "You mean a swimming pool, is that what you want to tell me, son of Poseidon?" Karen hissed out in annoyment, his negative, dead aura back on, oozing out of him while he glared with hollow sockets at the two demigods and one satyr. The son of Poseidon, daughter of Athena and the satyr all shivered on the terrible visions of death that now plagued their mind, sending horrifying images of countless deaths, and if that wasn't worst enough, images of torture in the deepest part of Hades' realm. "What stops me from killing you three and grant you access to Hades' realm?" The son of Poseidon fear melts at the comment of the god in front of him. Images of his beautiful, gentle and kind mother flashed in front of his mind eye. The thought that she would never see her again, the things he did to free his mother from Hades' grasp overcame him, and with an angry roar, Poseidon's son shouted, "My mother is in the hand of that bitch. You will give us entrance or ill. Or what?" Karen threatened in a menacing tone, "Kill me. As if you can hurt a god, push me aside, with what, your feeble strength? Bribe me, blackmail me, you have nothing to me. Well, son of Poseidon, what will you do?" The lazy ferryman now straightened up, standing tall and towered over the demigods and satyr. A menacing aura oozed out of him while the god now grinned at them with greed. "Or would you make a deal with a god? A deal with the ferryman, son of Poseidon? A deal with me? One soul from one of you that will grant a safe passage to the temple of Hades. Choose, son of Poseidon." The son of Poseidon glared at the ferryman who just towered over them, power oozing out of him that told them just how powerful this deity is. In the shadows of the hollow sockets that normal humans have eyes in, for Karen there was a pair of eerie red light that are strained on him that the son of Poseidon stupidly or bravely shouldered. "I will not offer one of my friends, nor my own, just let us pass and you will not see us again." Percy, the satyr blared quietly in righteous fear, a warning tone in his voice. Calm down, you don't want to know. I don't care, Grover. All I want is my mother. Percy cut off his friend with his loud, enraged voice, cursing at the gods, especially that one god Hades who took his mother, all in the stupid belief that he have the so-called weapon of Zeus. My mother was dragged into this because the gods are dumb enough to believe that I have some called lightning stick. Sensei, what is that boy's problem? Can't he just pay and take the ferry? Karen, Percy, Grover, and the still unnamed girl all turned to see that a very attractive girl had spoken to a tall figure who had his hand rested on the girl's shoulder. And what does he say?
Kuroka-chan, this boy's dialect is from the time when Greek was in great power. That is the reason why you don't understand him, and another reason is that these children are Greek demigods, children from said gods, explained her sensei at why she did not understand the boy's tirades. As for what the boy's temperament is for, let's say that his mother is kidnapped by my old friend. Kuroka tilted her head cutely, eyes large in disbelief. She felt her sensei push her forward to the group, guiding her, and with each step, she could see the confusion of the three humans that her sensei called demigods, and for the god who denied the three demigods passage on his ferry, he was slowly inching away, fear clearly seen in his movements. Konnichiwa Mina.
Another group that needs entrance to the underworld, Annabeth, whispered Percy to his friend, the only female in the group, sea green eyes watching the two strangers who closed the distance between them. Any ideas if they are monsters? He added after a second thought. The blonde female studied the two and quickly caught strange features from the girl. She noticed that hidden in the sea of soft, silky black hair a pair of cat-like ears twitched, hazel, golden eyes that had cat-like pupils gazed with curiosity at them. Behind the girl, a pair of black tails swayed lazily behind her, showing she was calm and a bit playful. Percy, Grover, stay on guard. That girl is not human. She has cat-like features and I am certainly that she is a monster. Never would I have thought that a monster would try to attack us here. Just great, blah. Blurred Grover, eyes large as dinner plates when his danger radar goes off, warning him for danger. That tall person next to here gives me the chills, the same chills when I am in the presence of the whole council. Percy uncapped his ballpen that morphed in his father's gift, Anaklusmos. Next, to him Annabeth followed his example. Her knife in hand she took a defensive stance. What do you want, monsters? You have no powers here in Hades' realm, she threatened from her perspective view, strangers bordering enemies, and you. Annabeth pointed with her knife at the catgirl. What are you? Good to see you again, Karen. How's the business going? Naruto addressed the god, ignoring the demigods in favor to finish quickly his business. Karen himself inclined his head in honor for the infinite god who graced his presence and answered. You can see how business goes, Naruto. No one used the old rituals to pay the ferry, Karen said in a gloomy tone. They are all stuck here. Most of them are Christianities, believing that their god would grant them free passage to the afterlife, or in my case, Hades' realm. God or his children don't pay for them, nor want the other gods, and so they will stay stuck here for all of the eternity, tormenting me with their wails. Yes, very unfortunate. In his arrogant, God forgets the rules. I and the other three rulers know that there is a need for balance in the world. Everyone here on Earth, in this universe, have the task to do the things they were born for. Even I, Naruto commented, conjuring a sack of drachmas that he threw towards Karen. And for now, I pay for these kids, my apprentice and I, the passage to Hades' temple, and when you return I expect you to give these unfortunate souls a ride to their destination. After all, what contains in the bag easily secures that. Thank you, Naruto. I appreciate your help. Karen thanked the infinite god with grace. The bag with drachmas fell in his extended hand and picked one out. Unbelievable. It has been a while when I touch one. Very well. I'll grant those you wishes passage on my ferry. Please enjoy the ride. Percy moved his left arm, elbowing his blonde companion in her side. Psst, Annabeth. Do you know what they are talking about, because I can't understand them? At first, the son of Poseidon had thought that they spoke in a very, very old ancient Greek, but to him, it was more gibberish. And why are they not attacking us? They are monsters, right? How would I know? Retorted Annabeth with some heat in her voice to the dim-witted son of Poseidon. It irked her that she did not understand the dialect, a language that is used in the Far East in the land of Asia where the Greeks hadn't marked their existence. But if I should guess, I bet that they speak Japanese, and if I am right then that girl would be an Asian monster, so stay on your guards, guys. Come Kuroka, let us board the ferry and visit Hades. Kuroka clung to her sensei's arm and pulled him up the ferry and glanced around. Smiling, she noticed a small bench and pushed Naruto on it before she jumped on his lap and cuddled against Naruto's chest. This is Karen, god of boundaries and territories. He is the son of Nyx, primordial goddess of the night, and the ferryman who carries the soul of the newly deceased across the river Styx. As you have seen, many newly deceased are stuck on the border between the living and the realm of the dead. Each religion has their own rituals to secure the newly deceased a safe passage to the afterlife, Valhalla, underworld, etc. Kuroka nodded at the lecture from her sensei. I had never known, but why are there still a lot of them here at the entrance of the Greek god of the underworld? You blamed the Christianity god. Why? The Nekosho questioned her sensei, curious about why the blame lay at the Christianity god's feet. Naruto spread out his free arm to the river on the other side of the ferry. Green dull water stretch out endlessly as far the eye reach. The river Styx is a sacred river that separates the land of the living from the realm of the dead in the underworld. Kuroka nodded when she glanced at the bank to see many spirits that had waited for a very long time. She also noticed the demigods entering the ferry, standing next to them. Oaths made by this river bring something worse than death to the oathbearer if not fulfilled. If anyone bathes in the river Styx, that person becomes invulnerable to most physical attacks. But the reason why this river is so dull and polluted is that the gods make empty promises, passing off to those who can't fight the curses. The river is now filled with lost hopes and dreams, as well as wishes that never came true, and that do not only affect the river but also the world. Our chakra will try to filter the pollution, but I will explain that another time. You sound if there is more to our powers, something that only we can do, Kuroka teased her sensei. rubbing her cheek against his chiseled chest that caused him to bust out in laughter while Karen finally pushed off the boat from the shore and the current pulled them along the river. But back to why you blame God. What is the reason? The Christianity God promised mankind a place in heaven but obviously failed. Yes, creatures and humans die, but as you could see they all arrives here at the death or alive entrance with no money to pay the ferryman. While others like the Norse pantheon sends their Valkyries. The Christianity religion are too busy with their foolish war. And if the followers of their God praise for him, all they do is guide them to here. Letting their souls wait for eternity, Naruto finished what he believes what caused this long line of souls waiting for the next life. For Kuroka, she pitied them. Those poor souls, as many of them looked downcast and waited for salvation. Another note of attention. Only the gods appointed to care for the death can give them eternal rest or resurrection. Even I can't bring back the death without a tool or a favor. That's horrible, cried Kuroka in a low volume, her face buried in her hands. I could not disagree with you, Kuroka-chan, agreed Naruto while stroking her silky black hair, watching the river flow past him, and with his only free hand he plunged his finger in the water. A faint glow came from his index finger, curing the river that let off an emerald light, and a part of the river became less dull, clear like the clearest of water, and a soft, caring tone of a woman could be heard. Thank you Naruto-kun for purification a part of my river. The ferry glided through the river, moving across the water to the other shore where a massive, dangerous Cerberus was guarding the true entrance to the underworld to Hades' realm. 3 massive heads snapped at them. 3 pairs of eyes burned with hunger. Large, sharp canines snapped a few feet away from them. Nya. What is that for a creature? Kuroka hissed out cat-like. Her body shook in fear for such a massive creature, especially when that creature is a 3-headed dog. She turned her head to her sensei when sounds of chuckles escaped his throat that only became stronger in volume until it was a full-blown laughter. Question marks would have appeared if this was a comic show, but her expression was enough for her sensei to answer, while behind them the trio of demigods and satyr send each other a questioning look. This is Cerberus, Hades' guard dog, isn't he cute? Naruto told her, caressing her hair that caused her to purr. You only need to give him a thick, fat, moist slice of meat and you will be friends in no time. Percy turned to his companion, Annabeth, with a questioning gaze, wondering what these two were talking about, when the 3-headed dog suddenly doomed out of nowhere and dangerously close. Percy, to his eternal shame, and possible the same could be said for his friend Grover, they screamed like girly girls when the massive teeth almost caught them. Having slowly recovered from his bout of panic, arms wrapped around Grover, Percy shouted to Annabeth, what in God's name was that? That massive, 3-headed dog. And why is that white man so calm? Annabeth herself, of course, had reads books upon books about the dreaded guard of the underworld. The tales that survived through the centuries did not give enough credit about the size of this monster, and she wondered how heroes like Hercules survived a confrontation with such a monster. How heroes like Aeneas and Sibyl managed to tame this beast until it sleeps and then stole the guard of the underworld from Hades. Taking a deep breath, she almost retched out when the scent of the death filled her lungs. Annabeth explained, Cerberus, also known as the guard of the underworld, not much is known, but according to myths, Cerberus can devour the souls of departed. A sick laughter erupted from behind them and Annabeth.
Percy and Grover turned around to see the ferryman making that sounds. Oh my dear daughter of Athena, Cerberus can do much more than devouring souls, like devour you here right now to please him. After all, our poor guard hadn't eaten much lately. The ferryman spoke in a ghostly voice that sounds like steel rattling against steel, and screams of departed. But your Greeks are lucky, you're in a presence that not even I, let's stand, Cerberus want to fight.
3 pairs of eyes turned to the tall, white man who was in conversation with that very attractive girl who sits in his lap. From Athena's daughter perspective, the man didn't seem so special, strange, yes, strong, definitely a no, but for curious sake, she needed to know who this man is that seemed to help them so far. Who is he? Someone you don't want to make enemies with, girl, remember that. For now, we have arrived at your destination, the ferryman told her. A clear warning that whoever this person is, that he is quite deadly and dangerous. Without a second thought, Annabeth leapt out of the boat and rushed towards her friends who followed the strange duo. All around her was a plain of death, lifeless trees, rotting corpses of small animals, and there are even small, skeleton animals that ran around. The daughter of Athena quickened her pace, fearing this place rightful. She finally joined Percy and Grover, who were not far from the strange duo, with the white man pointed at several things, talking in that strange language that explained several things to the younger girl. Kuroka smiled at her sensei, letting out a giggle when he pointed out at several zombified celebrities that moved towards a beautiful city, majestic, yet still held the gloom of death. At the foot of the towers, you could see several skulls of the damned that were main structure, eyes glowing eerily the further they entered the city of death. "Nya, your friend governed this city?" "Yes, little Hades governed this beautiful city," a bit gloomy. "Yet it has its tastes. You can say that Hades made out the bests out of what he gained of the three domains. Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades might be the rulers, however. That is only a small part, like many other godly deities. They need to share their domain with others, splitting their strength with many immortals. Romans and Greeks share the same powers because they are the same person, only carrying different names. Then you have of course the Norse pantheon. They govern the northern part of the world, following with the Asian Parthenon that is split into smaller ones. A god for each country, while some of them carry many names like that of the Greek and Roman. All these Parthenon have one thing in common: carry out justice and balance. However, with the rising of the Christianity, that balance was broken. Chaos ensured and the gods fought for control, trying to bring balance back. Even I shares my title. My other half is Ophis the infinite dragon, while Great Red Dragon of the Apocalypse shares his title with the Great Beast. 666. Sensei, you sidetracked again. Nya. Kuroka sulked, hearing her sensei sidetrack again. While informative, she, however, wanted to reach the underworld of the devils quick and capture a devil's peerage member to see how bad it is. Grasping his hand, Kuroka pulled Naruto with firm steps through the halls of Hades' temple. Blue flames guided them. You must learn to focus on one thing, not on hundreds other. My sensei, Nya. Naruto let out a laugh, wrapping an arm around her shoulder and pulled her towards him. I'll try. I promise. Now, let us greet the great blue devil of the underworld. Kuroka, who looked up when her sensei called a god such a thing. But Naruto, being a deity far above that of a normal god, could easily afford such an insult. But when they entered the throne room, she could see why her sensei called one of the big tree of the Greek pantheon such a title. Hades is a tall figure, wearing black chiton with golden Greek's fortunes on the edges of his robes, pale, blue skin and bald head with blue flames covering his head, just like the Hades from the Disney movie Hercules. He's blue. Welcome Naru. Hades started with a hellish warm smile that quickly dropped when the small companion of his friend called out that cursed color. Within seconds smog raised out of his ears, pale blue switched to a volcano red color and his hair erupted. Naruto. Dispel immediately this monstrous illusion, right now. The god of the underworld shouted out in rage when he noticed that his old friend had called that dreadful illusion, sinking in his throne, sulking about evil friends, while his mood didn't improve when the scent of the sea, forests and so-called wisdom reached his sensitive organ. Oh, don't tell me you brought more brats with you? I didn't, Naruto told his old friend in an English dialect, much to the demigod's surprises. They sneaked on Karen's boat when I and my cute, little apprentice Kuroka here needed to talk with you. I have my suspicion that they couldn't wait to meet you before their unfortunate death. Yeah, sure you did, Hades grumbled out in pure disbelief, straightening himself in his seat while a door creaked open and his wife Persephone entered the throne room with grace. Her face lit up when she caught sight of Naruto, something that caused Hades sunk back in his chair. Great, even my wife is happier than me in seeing this bastard. Oh, cheer up, love. I haven't seen my old friend for so long, Persephone exclaimed while hugging Naruto and peppered his face with kisses. Once she stopped in showering him with kisses, her eyes caught sight of an adorable little girl. Her smile only grew. And who might you be, young Nekosho? Kuroka, madam. Kuroka the Nekosho and pupil of Naruto, Nya. Kuroka squealed out in happiness while Persephone wrapped her arms around the girl, pulling her into a tight embrace, rubbing her face in the cleavage of the queen of the underworld. Kuroka told her the reason why they are here. And we need your help in entering undetected in Devil's territory, Nya. And we need your help to entering undetected in Devil's territory, Nya. Persephone heard the young Nekosho exclaim loudly while hiding behind the infinite deity. The goddess merely smiled at the cute girl, sending her a generous smile before she retreated back to her throne, and lowered herself on it. The goddess of springtime and flowers turned her attention to the god that is so many times powerful than her and her husband. And why did you come to us, Naruto? We know that you're powerful enough to just enter the underworld without anyone knowing. So why is our question? Persephone asked Kuroka's mentor, who laughed quietly before cutting that off. There is no other reason than that of courtesy, answered Naruto with a hand on Kuroka's shoulder. Without asking for a blessing from some of the gods that keep an eye about this domain, I put easily Kuroka or anyone that is close to us in danger. Why? Because you can easily reveal us in retribution, and that was why we used the Death or Alive Company entrance to gain a Karen on our side. Hades let out a deep laughter at the short reasoning of the most powerful god in existence. However, it doesn't matter how powerful you are. If you don't show the courtesy for specified gods, they can easily make your life a hell. Literally, you are cunning, my lord. I could not say that any better as you just did, so I'll give you my blessing and a warning. A warning? NYA? Kuroka queries in confusing, tilting her head slightly to the right that brought out a squeal from Persephone while Hades groaned at his wife's behavior. Hades nodded. Yes, a warning. The underworld is at the moment a very dangerous place for any member of the Yukai's faction with the exception of Kuroka's sister who is protected by the Gremory House. However, that is just barely. I know that your sister, Hecate, had warned you, but I too want to warn you about the consequences of what happens if you rescue her right now. Kuroka hissed quietly from down her throat, her eyes narrowed dangerously while her tail swayed unrest behind her. If you rescue young Chiron right now, I can promise that I'll welcome the almost whole Nekomata race. However, there is another way to rescue her. If Naruto is successful in retracting the evil pieces from you and place you under a mark of his own, you, Kuroka, will be free from devils and Yukai's law. That's a fair warning, Hades. Thank you. Naruto inclined his head in thanks. Perhaps we can meet someday after I've finished Kuroka's training and you can introduce your son and daughter to me. Naruto proposed for a meeting outside of the underworld while guiding his apprentice out of the throne room before he gained an answer, grasping Kuroka lightly around her waist as a portal opened in front of them at which they stepped through, and before they vanished Naruto's last comment were for the demigod's children and Satyr, Percy, Annabeth, and Grover. Have some fun with your grandfather. I hope to hear some great stories when we meet again. Ciao. Wah. What do you mean, have fun with our grandfather? Exclaimed Annabeth in discomfort now that she noticed that the strongest being who could order Hades around to release Percy's mother in the return of the lightning bolt. Hey. Don't walk away. Annabeth Chase, in the name of my mother, orders you to help us. Daughter of Athena ordered in a loud, commanding tone with the hope that he would listen to her. However, all that she gained was a bucket of ice-cold water fall over her, at which Persephone laughed loudly at her unfortunate accident. Don't run away. Her voice echoed through the throne room while the portal shut close and they were left with the Lord and Queen of the underworld. Darkness crept over the floor and up on the walls of the throne room as Hades spread out his darkness power, and Annabeth, Percy and Grover slowly turned around to see the King and Queen of the underworld smirk down evilly at them. Now that important business are over, why would I let you three intruders alive here in the underworld where the death rules? Hades' eerie voice echoed menacingly off the walls of the throne room, and a cold, dreadful feeling filled the demigods and one lone satyr as the darkness thickened until only the master of the underworld could be seen before he too vanished. Underworld, Devil's Territory. Two figures stepped out of a black portal. An unnatural wind erupted around them, cloaks billowing before they settled down. A thin layer of dust rose up when their feet touched the ground. So, this has happened to the underworld after the massive battle between those two fools, commented Kuroka's sensei dryly while he took everything in. All that is left are floating platforms of earth, dry pools, and almost death trees. They really don't know how to take care of nature. This place is just as I remember. Everything here radiates somber. Oppressive. One word, hell. Kuroka spoke in a small, somber voice, her eyes sad while she took everything in, from the bare trees to the dry holes that were once sparkling, crystal clear lagoons. This place rightfully earns to be called an underworld. And that is why I still have doubt of leaving here. My little sister, Chiron. She tilted her head up to look at her sensei's face. Sensei, why can't we take Chiron with us? Please, why? Kuroka cried out in a small, broken voice. She felt her sensei's arms wrap around her, holding her tight against him in a protecting way. Kuroka, Naruto whispered in a caring voice, listen to me. I know that leaving your sister was a difficult decision, here, in this awful place that brought you only misery. However, I want you to think clearly. I have the powers to take Chiron with us, protecting her from those that want to finish what they started. Here Kuroka nodded eagerly of having her sister with her. But my friends, Hecate and Hades, have seen or felt something that would cast destruction. If I would rescue Chiron, what would happen to your race? The devils are still in anger and hate of what you have done to protect your younger sister, and they would not soon forget that. Imagine what would happen if I take Chiron with us. Would they retaliate and attack the Nekosho that found shelter under the protective arms of the yokai faction? Here Kuroka's eyes widened in fear. Images of her race being slaughtered by those rotten devils. There would be a bloody fight. Devils would accuse the yokai faction and they would defend themselves from accusations, and we don't know what might happen. No. I don't want them to fight. My race, they do not deserve such a future. Kuroka cried out in sadness while she buried her head in the embrace of her sensei. I will train hard, become stronger, and then I will take my sister back, she vowed to herself, promising that she would train hard until she can reunite with her again, no matter what Chiron felt for her. And that my young apprentice, that it is hard to be primordial. Making decisions that could spell the end of a whole race or the happiness of one. thought Naruto while comforting his apprentice who cried out hot tears that stained his obi. While we have powers that could destroy or create, we must be careful in using them. Unlike most primordials, I do care about those living here on Earth and will try to protect them. Tilting his head up to see the crimson sky, apprentice and sensei vanished from the floating platform and emerald leaves dwindled down slowly towards the earth. Somewhere else a gust of wind erupted and the pair appeared in front of a massive medieval castle. Glancing down, Naruto nudged her shoulders with his own. Kuroka-chan, welcome to Ajuka Beelzebub Jumble Castle. Well, infiltrate this place and steal anything worth while searching for our answer to your problems, spoke the primordial with a beat-up voice, trying to bring a bit of a sparkle back into his apprentice. "Nya, how do you want to enter this place? Through the front gate?" Kuroka commented in a high-pitched voice, eyes wide in disbelief and her depressive mood for the moment pushed aside. Her eyes widened some more when she noticed the challenging smirk of her sensei. Naruto nodded at his apprentice, a devilish smirk plastered on his face. "You're correct. Well, use a handy technique or what we called in the past Henge no Jutsu." Performing the tiger hand seal and with a column of white smoke Naruto vanished and on his place stands Seer's Lucifer. "Using this by molding our chakra to make a second layer over our body, we can change our body to look like anyone we want. Now my plan, you will masquerade as his little sister, Gremory Rias." Placing his hand on her head, Naruto pushed some chakra into her system and her silk black hair turned a deep crimson color. Now on Kuroka's former place stands Seer's little sister, Gremory Rias. "Now, stay calm and let me do all the work, okay?" "Hi." Kuroka called out while watching her sensei's finger closing the distance between them and the doorbell. A moment later a loud explosion resounded through the castle. Black smoke floated out of an open window. Not a second later the doors flew open and a tall young man with light green hair appeared in the entrance. A scowl was clearly seen on his face. "Seerzek, I hadn't expected you today." The green-haired Satan, Ajuka spoke in an annoyed voice when his eyes rested on his fellow Satan. "Did I not told you that Rias get her items tomorrow?" Eyes narrowed when his red-haired friend sweated slightly under his sharp glare. "Or is this an excuse for you to avoid some paperwork and your wife, Graphia? Well, which one is it?" Seerzek brought his hand to the back of his head, rubbing his hair nervously. "Ha, ha, you got me," confessed the red Satan with a weak laugh, when suddenly in a blink of an eye the red Satan have his arms wrapped around the green-haired Satan's legs. "But please don't tell them I am here. My sweet, cute innocent Rias would not hand me out to them." "You bribed her by using my invention to keep her lips sealed," Ajuka dryly stated while glancing to the heiress of the Gremory house, lowering his head in defeat and letting out a deep sigh. Ajuka pushed his friend away from him, releasing himself from his firm grip. "All right, Seerzek. I'll let you stay here for an hour maximum and not a second longer as am I not looking forward to your wife's wrath. Now come on then, I'll show you what Rias-chan get for wonderful items." "Thank you, brother," exclaimed the red-haired Satan overjoyed and with another blink of an eye, Seerzek appeared next to his little sister with his hand resting on her shoulder. "You will not regret it. Now let enter the wonderful world of the green Satan, Rias." And with a skip in his step, the two impersonated figures of Seerzek and Rias entered one of the most dangerous places. Naruto and Kuroka followed the green Satan in his footsteps. And Kuroka plays her role as Seerzek's curious, little sister brilliantly. She pointed out the old inventions of the first devil's evil pieces that are placed on stands. Others are of images, portraits of his heroic deeds in the civil war of the underworld while others are with him and the other Satans. Glad that Kuroka points out the other Satans. If I ever meet them then I would not make an error of insulting them or if we clash in a fight, then I know at least some of their abilities. Naruto thought while taking in their faces, and for a moment his eyes lingered longer on the out-of-proportion breasts of the only female Satan. Ahem. Seerzek was brought out of his staring at the wonderful breasts of the Satan Seraphal Leviathan when Ajuka cleared his throat to get his friend's attention. "Seraphal's breasts are fascinating, aren't they? However, if you stare any longer at them I am afraid that I need to report this to your wife," warned the green Satan with a stern gaze at his friend. "Now come along, and I will explain what so special is about these items." A surprised look appeared on the red-haired Satan, however that was the mask as inwardly Naruto frowned at what this man means. This man is without a doubt a genius, however, his plans to bring his people back in huge amount is a danger to the natural order by changing them into devils that will bring more negative energy into the world. As you know, our kind have dwindled rapidly since the great war between the three factions of the pure and impure angels of God and our own. After our own civil war, I've started to research a way to double our kind threefolded, and I succeeded when I created the evil pieces that would transform every living being into a devil while they retain their own nature aspect. Sirzek turned his attention to him when he started his story and explanation of how the evil pieces came to be, and like you know, it was a huge success. For a moment the two Satans were quiet, each in their own thoughts before Ajuka continued. Perhaps I was too successful, Sirzek. My thoughts started with doubts with the Nekosho accidents when the stray devil Kuroka murdered her master in an act of power. My theory is that her minuscule chakra source gained too early a boost, and with her still being a cat creature, and in combination with that of a devil, she turned out quite power-hungry. And what did you come up with to repel these threats? Questioned Sirzek in a colder voice when he heard this Satan speak like that about his apprentice. The pair moved now a bit slower through the halls, and Sirzek gazed coldly at his friend. Don't delay. I, as a fellow Satan, want to know what you did to these items. Ajuka's eyes widened when first his friend spoke coolly to him when he spoke about the stray devil. And now his demands of knowing about his newest pieces. Perhaps the outcome of rescuing the sister of the stray devil didn't go well, and now the pressure is too much for him. Formulated the green-haired devil while starting to study his friend for any sign of tiredness. He noticed the tiredness, but also something else, however. He let it slide for now in favor of explaining his newest, improved devil's evil pieces. After a long time of testing and tinkering, I found out how to improve my set. Actually, it was a fortunate accident. However, the results are amazing. These pieces now have a purple radiating, the sign that they are mutated. These pieces can turn any creature into a devil completely with a few compounds from their previous life, as long if they are below the power of the king. If I understand this correctly, if I gift the young Nekosho that is now in my household this mutated piece, she will turn completely into a devil with no Nekosho traits except for her chakra. Following that, if she is not stronger than the person that she wants to recruit. Here Ajuka nodded at his friend, who summed his explanation perfectly well together. However, I guess here there is somewhere a clause, something to secure that something like what happened with the stray devil will not repeat itself, am I right? Sirzek told his friend of what he had gathered so far, and they arrived at his workplace. They are standing in front of a box that radiated quite some power. Yes, you got that right. I've put a clause in these items. If a devil-made member will revolt, the king can order to take his or her devil's powers back, and by doing this the person would die as nothing from his former life exists. No human, Nekosho or any other being's cells are left behind, confessed the Satan while picking up the box, and turned to his friend. I want to say that this is possibly my best work, and that this might be the answer for Rias to give her a chance to avoid her contract with the Phoenix House. Sirzek accepted the box with the chess pieces. A small, cruel smile appeared on his face when he came in possession of the box. Thank you, Ajuka, and sorry to deceive you, but Sirzek is not here. Nihon Shoja no Jutsu. Ajuka's eyes widened in shock when his friend's eyes turned purple with 9 rings around his pupil and a harsh glare appeared on his face. Automatic, his body tried to make some distance between this impostor and himself. Alas, it seemed it was too late when Ajuka felt his body to lose its strength and gained some difficulty to stay awake. In the corner of his eyes, he noticed that white feathers floated slowly down towards the floor. WH. Who are you? The Satan managed to yell out at the end before his consciousness blackened out. Someone you don't need to know nor to remember, whispered Sirzek while using another jutsu to remove the knowledge about the newest invention and his use of his techniques. Lowering the unconscious Satan to the floor, Sirzek created Seal-less, a shadow clone that would search through the papers quickly before destroying the workplace of this devil. While his clone was working, Sirzek moved towards the exit where he noticed his apprentice standing, waiting for him. I changed my mind, Kuroka. Well, have a new mission, a rescue mission. Rias Gremory, heiress of one of 72 pillar houses of the underworld, moved her dark black bat wings through the air, keeping her body afloat in the air, and her beautiful crimson hair danced freely in the wind that gently caressed her face. Ni-san, when do we arrive at Green Satan's castle? Cause I cannot wait for any second longer for my peerage pieces, shouted the heiress in an exasperated way, her cheeks tainted pink and a frown on her face. Something her brother love about her. With them in my hands, I will finally get my first 2 pieces, my best friend, Himeji Akeno, and another as a rare breed of Nekomata. Next to her, using his 6 pair of bat wings as her brother Sirzek Lucifer, who former belonged to the House of Gremory before he took the name and title of Lucifer. Like his sister, Sirzek has long flowing crimson hair and is counted to one of the most desired and famous devils of the underworld. The Satan let out a loud, amused laughter rang through the air when Sirzek sees the cute expression on his sister's face. Ooh, Rias-tan. You look so adorable with that face.
Let your brother hug you, cried the Satan in an unfashionable way of someone of his standing. With his arms spread, Sirzek rushed towards the younger devil, tears pouring out of the corner of his eyes when Sirzek managed to wrap his arms around her still, frozen form, rubbing his cheek on that of Rias, who desperately tried to escape her older brother's monstrous hug in her ears or assaulted by his voice. I love you so much, Rias-tan.
Today is the day you take your first step into growing up. Satan Sirzek Lucifer's voice rang far and wide through the underworld, reaching a certain couple that flew towards the mansion of one of the 72 pillar of the underworld. They are now the most wanted persons of the underworld. However, the underworld hasn't yet gained such a notice, and with that luck on their side, Naruto and Kuroka managed to fly unhindered towards their target. Nya. Naruto-sensei, that voice is from Sharon Caretaker, Sirzek Lucifer. Kuroka shared her thought about the voice she heard in the distance. The dark-haired Nekosho knew to who belonged that voice, and him in the nearby facility is not good for their situation. He's a powerful devil, a Satan class. We need to watch out for him. Sensei Nya. Naruto reached out to her, caressing the crown of her head. His eyes curled up in the trademark eye smiles of someone that was once assigned to be a mentor to him. Don't worry, my little Neko-chan. I do not want anything bad to happen to you as long I am alive, reassured Kuroka's sensei his young protege. Set that foolish Satan out of your head and let focus us on your sister, okay? But, he is a Satan class, Kuroka murmured in a small voice, fear firmly planted into her conscience when she once watched how the most famous Satan defeated a group of devils that thought to roar they ugly head in the underworld. Unexpectedly a warm arm wrapped around her upper torso and brought her in a warm embrace. Neon Sensei, whispered the Nekosho with growing eyes. Her cheeks felt suddenly warm. The warm soothing voice of her sensei suddenly teased her ears while she was brought deeper into his embrace, her chest flushed against his. Did I not say that you don't need to worry about him or anyone else that might disrupt in your union of your sister? But if it calms you down if I say that anyone here in the underworld would not even touch or scratch me, do you promise me not to worry again, Kuroka-chan? Neon. Promise, sensei. Kuroka said, her voice gathered strength when the light in her sensei's eyes burned with determination. She felt her chest rise and fall at the rhythm of his calm heartbeat. And she too calmed down while they moved through the underworld. They flew past asteroids, dying trees that appeared on their path, and Kuroka could feel the negative feelings of nature. Her neck hair froze at the feeling, standing up straight, and she felt as if she would drown in a sea of negative feelings. Before the feeling could seep deeper into her heart, a calm but firm hand caressed the bangs of her hair gently, disrupting the negative feelings. She sends him a grateful smile when the negative aura and feelings were filtered out of her system. Kuroka-chan, keep your thoughts calm and let it flow through you. Her sensei's calm, baritone voice caressed her ears. What you just felt a moment ago are the dying trees and this nature's rage of what they did to her, explained the sage with a thoughtful frown on his face. She feels alone, abandoned and hurt by what they did to her body, and when she felt us, she tried to reach out to us in the only way she knows, namely with rage, revenge. Who is her? The Nekosho asked curiously. She turned her head sharply to her left when a new burst of new negative energy erupted out of the floating islands of Earth. A being that has many names that each carries the same burden. The Greek pantheon calls her Gaia, with those of Rome pantheon. They call her Terra, and the Norse pantheon calls her Jorth. Goddess of the Earth. Those are the few names she uses, with her being visiting one of them. Kuroka listened to her sensei, who is once more in lecture mode. The Earth is only personified by a single goddess, her powers so great that if there were more she would self-destruct herself. When there are more than one meetings with different pantheon, Earth's personified goddess would split herself up into the images of those that summoned her. If she really wants to wipe out those that call themselves rulers, they would be wiped out in a blink of an eye. Amber golden eyes increased in disbelief at the discovery of the Earth herself. It is true, Kuroka-chan. She let those gods that rule the surface just play like impudent little children until she deemed enough. And that is why, we, your race, including the Yukai, exist to terminate her current rage to the world, explained her sensei. A breeze of wind caressed their faces when they descended. Your kind's power comes from the very soil of Gaia, the Earth Mother, and she always helped your kind in their need of help, lending her powers to you in the form of senjutsu. Now, it is your kind turn to help her, and this all start with you with my guidance and teachings. I do not understand how we can help such a powerful goddess, especially when you said that I must do it. At the moment my own kind hates me. I caused almost the end of my own kind. Kuroka said with a heavy voice when memories of the devil's attacks on her kind returned. Tears gathered anew at the corner of her eyes, only for them to be wiped away by her sensei. You don't need to understand immediately, or else my job is easily done. When we have retrieved your sister from the hands of the devils, literally, we will first clear your name with the Yukai faction and reveal your place at my side. After that, we, Sharon, you and I will start your training in becoming a sage to help Mother Nature. Sensei said to his student. wiping away the last stray tear from her face before they touched the ground. Now dry your tears and call upon your impersonated form of the sister of the Mao. We will infiltrate their own estate to get your sister. Once Chiron is in our presence, safe and well, I will teleport us out of the underworld, explained the sage his plans of rescue to the young Nekosho. Her long beautiful silky black hair turned a bright crimson, bright amber golden eyes turned a teal green and her form shrunk down until she was 8 years old girl. Next were her clothes, turning in a cute red dress that looks good together with her hair. NYA, will we really fool them like this? Murmured Kuroka disbelieving when she glanced down her body. She frowned when she noticed the lack of her breasts at which she is very proud of. Unlike that green-haired bastard who lives alone, Gremory Mansion is filled with servants and members of the house who will recognize if we do something out of the norm, she said with a bit of worry in her voice. Kuroka does not want to leave her sister for the second time. Trust me, Kuroka-chan. Everything will be fine. Now keep your chin high up and let me do the talking if we come across the members of House Gremory. The now Sirzek looks alike said, his hand resting comfortably on her shoulder. His large hands pushed the door open and they entered the mansion, and the two impersonated intruders are immediately welcomed by a troop of maidens. Welcome home, Master Lucifer and Heiress Gremory. We did not foresee your return so quickly. Did you perhaps forgot something? Perhaps your wife must be informed, one of the maidens from the troop said to Sirzek. The mentioned devil blanched at the idea that his wife would come to meet him. A huge sweatdrop rolled down the side of his face and with a quick, wild gesture of his hands he waved away the concerns of his maidens while letting out a joyful laugh. Calming down his nerves, Sirzek addressed the maidens. Hello, girls. Sorry to trouble you this early in the morning and from not so long ago when we left. On our way to my friend we intercepted a message that someone infiltrated the underworld with the intention of kidnapping the last Nekosho, explained the Crimson Satan with a worried expression of what might happen to the poor child. Imagine what would happen if they managed to kidnap her and my sister won't get her peerage member. Here the maiden turned all their head to gaze like one at the younger devil who seems to almost break out of tears. You can understand that this news makes me worried, especially for my cute Ria Tan. Or what it would do to me, whispered the devil in a low voice while Rias put in some more drama. She even started to tear up. The maidens of House Gremory let out a deep sigh like one and they waited until the Mao is done with his childish outburst and his unhealthy obsession with his sister. Not wanting to stay here listening to how the Sis Khan would boast about the heiress of House Gremory, one of the maidens stepped forward bravely and made a quick excuse. My lord, my apologies to interrupt your wonder speech about how wonderful Ria-sama is, but if you don't go quickly to retrieve that nasty, dirty Nekosho from the dungeons, I fear that those who want to take away your sister future peerage member will get their hands on her. Ria's tear vanished like snow in the sun when she heard that maiden speaks like that about her sister. She raged and her illusion wavered, yet the maidens behaved like normal to them as if that didn't happen. The Nekosho who fools these maidens around glanced to her sensei who just kept talking before they moved on towards the dungeons. With quick steps, she followed him until they were out of hearing range. NYA sensei, how come that they did not react when my illusion wavered? I did cover ourselves in an illusion before we entered the mansion. This mission I deemed important for you because of your sister. And I would not forgive myself if we failed in this. Also, I wanted to see how well you did because I think this is important to learn to keep your emotion under control when you face something like what happened a moment ago. The wavering of your illusion, Naruto said to his apprentice while he led her through a door and down the stairs. With your emotion under control and a good knowledge about illusions you can get most answers for your questions. An example. How did I find the dungeons so quick without knowing the way, Kuroka? Illusions NYA? She guesses shyly, her cheeks dusting pink when she thought about her answer. Somehow she felt that it was a silly guess. With hopeful eyes Kuroka glanced up to her sensei, seeing a smirk that told her in volumes how proudful he felt for her. Nya. I guessed it right, sensei. You did. Exclaimed Kuroka's sensei with a bright smile. Leading her through the maze of tunnels she could see that her sensei somehow knew which way they needed to take, and seeing him here so full of confidence, Kuroka vowed to become someone like him, and perhaps she can make him hers. No screw that, her sensei is hers. Laying your emotions is also a part of your lessons. If you're too enraged by the smallest of things, you can lose a battle, someone close or worst your own life, and Chiron. The sudden cry of his apprentice cut off his explanation in the soft breeze that was created by Kuroka who rushed past him to the cell door of her sister. Naruto let out a soft sigh now that all her attention is on her sister and a cold light entered his eyes, placing his index finger against the cold, rough stone walls of the dungeons that told him almost what horrifying things happened here, letting out a low hiss of anger. A seal appeared under his index that pulsed with chakra before it disappeared. This will deal with them when they arrive here, commented Kuroka's sensei before he joined his apprentice in the cell to meet her sister. Chiron, what have they done to you? The black-haired Nekosho cried out in anguish. Kuroka has reasons of feeling horrible when she found her sister in a horrible state. Her sister's beautiful snow-white hair is sticking to all sides. Dirt and other smelly stuff are clearly shown. Shirone's face which held tears track, and much to her horror she was blindfolded and chained to a chair. They will pay for what they had done to you. I promise you that, Shirone. She lifted her hand, spreading her fingers and her nails extended to claws that she used to cut her sister free. I can't say how sorry I am. That dirty liar told me you would be safe and well cared. Well, not. She rambled out and she managed to free her sister's wrists before moving to the chain around her neck. Oh, Oni-san. Kuroka shed more tears when she heard the quivering in her little sister's voice. She want to think about what those monsters did to her sister. The black Nekosho seethed at what they had done to her. Yet she was glad they did nothing intimidate with her. But that state the question with that sticky stuff is, really you? No. It is one of their tricks. They said that you murdered all the others. Your own king who take care of us. Why did you do it? Kuroka was for a moment stunned at what left her sister's mouth. These devils. What did they do to you? I swear, they will pay for this Nya. It is truly me, Shirone. Did I not say that I would come back for you? The black Nekosho said. Her fingers removed the blindfolds from her sister's face and the same shades of her own eyes stared back at her. However, they are troubled as if she had difficult to focus, drugged, and I won't leave without you. We need to go, my apprentice. Those bastards are making their wa. Her sensei's voice was cut short when a heavy menacing aura of power manifested in the dungeons. She could feel her sister, Shirone, shiver in fear, her head moving frantically from left to right while she wailed out in a high-pitched scream. The Mao is here. If you want to get your sister with you, we need to move now. Kuroka turned around. She could see the real Mao move quickly to their spot, an orb of the power of destruction in his hands and a mask of disgust on his face. Right, I won't leave without her. Ready we are. She shouted. Her eyes widened when she sees Sirzek spread his wings, which were a lot of them as he launched his devil's powers at them. Small black orbs rushed through the dungeon's tunnel towards them. Kaboom. Sirzek Lucifer, Mao of the Devils and Satan class, arrived with his sister at his friend's fortress. The Satan could not help to giggle at the thought that his sister can finally start her own peerage. After all, his sister have already 2 peerage members waiting for her in the mansion. One of them a dear friend of his, cute Rias Tan, and the other need a bit more convincing to join them. The Nekosho still thinks that her sister will come for her, and that is not something he wants her to remember. First of all, Sirzek arrived here to get 2 items. One is some kind of gel that will help him in brainwashing the child because a species of her kind are rare, and the others are of course his sister's new pieces. Rias Tan. What I feel right now is my excitement for you. I can't believe that my little sister has grown so much. Sirzek squealed and quickly rapped his knuckles against the heavy gates of the fortress of the mad scientist. There was no sound nor the faint aura of his friend. Frowning, Sirzek murmured under his breath, that lazy bastard. How dare Ajuka-san to let my sister wait for her first devil pieces, huh? Ni-san, when will that lazy devil let us in? I want my devil's pieces now. The loud cry of his beloved sister deafened his ears. Fearfully the great Satan turned around to look at his sister before suddenly sank to his knees and hugged Rias while crying out loud, stop this baka. Open the gate so I can get my first members the sooner I get my hands on these pieces. She ordered the mighty Lucifer, who followed them with the magic of destruction whirled around his hand before slammed them against the gates, only for the illusion to break in hundreds of pieces, and now the ruined states of the fortress was shown to Sirzek. What happened here? Sirzek's childish character vanished like snow that lay under the warm summer sun. And now a firm, hard face replaced the former, cold eyes gazed around him before his arms sneaked around the form of his sister. Lifting her up and held her tightly against his chest. Something I want to know too, yet the only answer is with my friend Ajuka, replied the Satan. Leapt he through the ruined fortress in search for his friend. Everywhere that his eyes landed on was ruined. Paintings were burning down and cast a black smokescreen. In the distance explosions could be heard until those sounds were overwhelmed by a roar that shook the fortress to its foundation. Sirzek, I will get you for this. Sirzek, you will pay for what you has done. Ajuka's form is embraced by his powers. A green aura surrounded him, his face lowered, chin against his chest while slick, wet green hair obscured his eyes that glowed eerily in the shadows. Entering my lair, removing my knowledge about what I have discovered to improve the evil pieces, however, you destroyed my life's work. Stole the evil pieces and blemished my trust. A pair of large, leather bat wings appeared on the Beelzebub's back, stretching out to both sides of his body, while in his open palm an orb of green magic appeared that with rapid speed rushed towards them and connected. All his demonic magic froze inside him, and all Sirzek could do is look at his best friend. However, There is a way to see if the Sirzek that visited me was really you. What? Exclaimed the Crimson Satan, and for a moment Sirzek doubted his hearing. Why do Ajuka say that I had visited him before, and from the state of the castle and from his reaction it was not long time ago that he was visited by me? That is so confusing. Stop. There are more important matters than discussing with myself about what I have done.
No, my doppelganger, Ajuka just told us that he had improved the evil pieces. However, they were stolen by the doppelganger and those pieces probably should have ended in my sister's hands. Eyes widened when they followed Ajuka's movement, closing the distance between them, and Sirzek knew that his friend would use that to see if the person in front of him is truly his dear friend. If not, well, let not take that path. Number.
Wait, buddy. Can we not do this in another way to prove who I am? I have no choose, for if this does not prove of who you're, then you can say farewell to this life. Sirzek tried to break with his own demonic powers to override that of Ajuka, only for his best friend to use his increase of powers against him with Kankara formula. Prepare yourself, Sirzek, or should I call you doppelganger? In Sirzek's arms, Rias could only watch one of the strongest Satan close the distance between them in an eerie, horror fashion way. The dark green aura intensified and the outstretched fingers of the Beelzebub Satan closed into her brother's forehead. Ni-san, no. A bright flash erupted in Sirzek's mind when the index finger and middle finger of Ajuka touched his forehead. Flashes of images played itself one after another in rapid succession. All images of him and his wife copulating until at the end the figure of Ajuka briefly appeared behind the clouded window. In his mind, Sirzek screamed out in shame and embarrassment that not only echoed inside but rushed out of his lungs through his throat and to the world to hear. After a long full 60 seconds, Ajuka released him, stepping back and grinned down at his friend. It seems you're truly my friend, Sirzek, spoke the green Satan in a passive voice. My apologies to watch these personal thoughts, but I want you to remind you that in a time of need, any Satan needs to show their most embarrassing moment. That was just an excuse to see my glorious moments, and what did you there when I was busy with my wife? Sirzek cried out in anger, and the power of destruction whirled around him and his sister. I saw you there in my memories, explain. I've never done that, my friend, Ajuka said ashamed. However, I believe that this doppelganger somehow confused your mind and implanted these thoughts, knowing that I would somehow see your memories and tried to set us up against one another, theorized the green Satan, pouring all his belief in this knowledge in his eyes and swung them toward Sirzek. I have no reasons to lie to you, my friend. Sirzek sulked for a short moment before steeling himself, wings spreading out of his back and with still his sister in his arms. The Satan-class devil took air. Well, speak later about what you has seen. For now, we must find out who or what the intruder is and why he undertake these actions. A thoughtful expression marred Ajuka's face, his thumb caressing his chin. From what I deduct, your doppelganger is a master in illusions and magic. He can easily pass for anyone, and there must be a reason why the doppelganger walks around like you, and he is not alone. Not alone? What do you mean? Questioned Sirzek, who felt his stomach turn uncomfortable when an ugly thought roared its head, feeling shivers running down his spine. The devil of destruction turned his eyes to his friend, sending him a silent message that seemed to ask confirmation about what he thought. This doppelganger have a partner in crime that looks like my sister. Unforgivable. I don't know why this person chooses us, but there will be hell to be paid when I get my hands around this person's neck. Walk back in line. Me first, Sirzek. I will demand my knowledge back and then I kill him for blowing up my lab. Grunt out Ajuka in dismay when his eyes cast a long look at his castle that is clearly in flames. Several black, leather bat wings sprouted out of his back and with one mighty slash towards the floor, Ajuka launched himself into the air towards his destination. Together, one a Satan with the power of destruction under his control, and the other Satan with his own unique power that is equal to that of his friend, Kankara formula. A power that has the chance to control others' demonic powers of his opponents. Alone, they are a match to fight an archangel to a standstill or wipe out entire armies. However, when together, they can fight god-like beings to a standstill, and right now their fury is aimed at the doppelganger that both Satans suspect is at Sirzek's former home, rushing through the twilight atmosphere of the underworld, wind rushing past their wings, while a young heiress of the Gremory house could only protect her eyes from the harsh wind by covering them with her hands. Ni-sama. Where are we going? Rias asked with her adorable voice, causing her older brother to lessen his terrifying mask to slip away for a short moment. She tilted her head slightly up and her eyes for the first time witnessed the tiredness from him. Ni-sama? Sirzek let out a tired sigh, relaxing his facial muscles and tried to send his sister a reassuring smile. The appendages that are wrapped around his little sister tightened slightly, and at first glance, That gesture would seem as if Sirzek tried to assure her for safety, while in truth is that the red Satan tried to ignore the growing feeling that is all too familiar to him. Feelings of insecurity and trouble awaited him in the near future. This is equally troublesome to a mountain of paperwork. Let your honorable brother do his thing, Rias-chan. He is currently trying to come up with a plan to capture the intruders without damaging your ancestral mansion. The voice of Ajuka came from her left. Rias' eyes turned to the green-haired Satan who, just like her brother, held a serious mask on his face. Capturing. Why? Questioned the smaller devil. From what I understand, this doppelganger chose Sirzek's form with a reason. Another reason is that this person does not operate alone and have an accomplice that masquerade like you. And our last reason at why we need them alive. Why did they steal a full set of devil evil pieces? Ajuka told the younger devil, his eyes firmly locked at the Gremory mansion that grew with each push of their wings, and Rias-chan. I want you to look for Graphia and stay with her. I believe that these intruders are very dangerous and it will be safer for you to stay with her, understood? Rias moved her head up and down rapidly, showing that she understood his command, her eyes wide at the strong aura that her brother's best friend radiated, and she knew that the intruder would gain a heavy slap upside the head. Can I have my pieces when you and my brother are done with them? She asked the green Satan before a frown appeared on her cute face when she sees Ajuka slap his head. Ha ha ha, silly. Sirzek. Why did we overlook to use portals to cut down the time to arrive in your parents' mansion? Exclaimed Ajuka before a green circle with the Beelzebub crest appeared in midair under his feet. The light engulfed him before his form vanished. Rias suddenly tilted her head to cast a glance at her brother when Sirzek let out a low groan out of his throat, and a second later the familiar crest of the pillar house of Lucifer appeared under the pair. Gremory Mansion, Sharon-cell, Kuroka's sensei waved his hand. A black orb appeared a few inches in front of the group while his free hand formed a tiger seal that weaved an illusion around Kuroka and Sharon. Face muscles relaxed. Naruto watched how the orb of destruction surged through the narrow path of the dungeon towards them. Crystal blue eyes with a white flower pattern narrowed a bit.
Studying his enemy's attack, the orb of destruction clashed against his truth-seeking orb that has conjured itself by his will into a black, concrete wall. His own orb of destruction shredded that of the Satan, tearing the orb slowly, layer by layer like a monkey peels away the skin of his banana. The result was an explosion that would have been equal to the human's atomic bomb. And dust blew off from the ceiling, walls, and floor, obscuring the Satan's view.
Ah. Is this the way how you greet guests, Satan-class Sirzek Lucifer? The doppelganger voice ran through the curtain of dust like a knife through butter, assaulting an unarmed young man. But devils are like that, aren't they? His voice adopted a mocking tone, yet it felt cold and brought shivers down the Satan's spines. They are nothing more than for mean. Congratulations, you title justice, Satan Lucifer, worst of the trash. Judging an innocent young girl that has nothing to do with the crimes of your own kind. 4 pairs of eyes grew in size into dinner plates. The accusations that her sensei somehow knows that there are other in the known about her innocent. Of course, she has told her sensei, but that those on the top, someone she thought that could be trusted with the protection of her sister. You knew? You knew that I was innocent. Promising me to clear my name while keeping my sister safe. Nya. Suddenly it dawned on her that this whole thing was orchestrated by the Satans. Nya. Now I see. Devils, you wanted my Sharon for your monster of a sister, using my own sister like some toy. Yet you knew that could not happen while my former scum of a master was alive. She knows your plans now, Sirzek. That stray cat is too dangerous to let her roam free. And that accomplices of her certainly is dangerous. I would never have thought that she would have the magic to use illusions to this high level. But her emotions were her downfall. Her love for her sister gave out her identity. Now if only the doppelganger let his illusion drop. The green Satan. Ajuka Beelzebub hissed in a quiet voice to his friend, only to cut off his own words when an oppressive power saturated the dungeon, and his eyes quickly shifted towards the doppelganger who has launched an orb of destruction towards them. Sirzek, defensive shield, now. Hearing the warning of his friend rang loud and clear in his ears. Sirzek summoned quickly a shield that is made by his power of destruction. For a moment the 2 Satans let out a breath of relief. And a red-haired one's lips curled up in an arrogant smirk. Tisk. That man feels very confident by mocking me by using a weak replicate of my devil's magic. Spat Sirzek out in disgust and hate, now knowing that someone could duplicate his powers. Let's overpower him, followed by capturing him and pressure this doppelganger to service, Sirzek whispered to his friend. His darker devil sides took over. Sirzek the devil of greed, because I let no one run free with such power. The red Satan's smirk fell from his face when in front of them the shield showed some strains. Cracks appeared at the center that slowly spread out more across the surface of his shield. Impossible. Keep your concentrating. Sirzek. Ajuka roared, stepping in with his hands pushed forward. Wisps of devil's magic whirled around his open palm. Using Kanara formula to strengthen his friend's power of destruction shield, in front of their eyes, Sirzek's shield slowly, but surely restored when the cracks mended together until only one black smooth surface is left. How are you keeping this up, my friend? Shouted the Satan-class devil over the wind that was forming from the collision of those two equal-powered attacks. His sleek green hair moved to all sides, while his devil's magic increased when new cracks appeared in the shield. Never mind, we need to find a way to take them out, if we double. No. We can't increase our strength with my parents, sister and all the servants still in the building, retorted Sirzek with a strained voice. Large pearls of sweat trailed down the side of his head, sliding towards his chin and fell on the floor. I'll need you to evacuate the mansion, and send my wife to me. Together we can stall them before you return. Aha! Cried out the Crimson Satan when a burst of power slammed into his shield, causing him to sink to his knees. With restrained strength, Sirzek lifted his head a bit up and glanced at his friends. Go. Go now while I still have the strength to keep him occupied. Narrowing his eyes, Ajuka could only grit his teeth firmly on one another while clenching his hands into fists. In his eyes, several emotions ran through them that revealed that he feared for the loss of his friend, worried about what could happen when doing the evacuations, and pride that Sirzek put so much trust into him. All right, Sirzek. I will warn the others to evacuate and send Graphia to you. Hang on, and show that idiot why you don't mess with Tu Mao of the underworld. So that is your decision, dying alone, here under your ancestral home? Sirzek heard while a new replicate of the Orb of Destruction flew into his shields. The power behind that collision sends the Crimson Satan several feet back that left a trail behind of where he had planted his feet firmly on the floor. A fitting end for you. After all, you wanted to end an innocent girl's life here in this very dungeon, or did you want to make a show out of the whole thing? Another blast of the doppelganger sends him a few feet further away from the Necocious prison cell while his shield showed that it caught some more damage.
I'll get you, bastard. You cannot be stronger than me, nor can you defeat a Mao. We're the ultimate being, even God feared us. Sirzek's loud voice bounced from the walls of the dungeon, eyes flared with unholy devil's magic that started to grow in volume, which caused cracks to appear on the walls, starting to push more magic into his shield that started to grow in thickness and strength while Sirzek himself pushed himself forward. I cannot be defeated by a damn company.
I cannot be defeated by a damn copycat, you said, flowed the sentence at the same time out of his opponent's lips, slowly raising his hand. Index finger extended forward just like his opponent, and a pitch-black orb started to grow at the tip. What about this? On the doppelganger face, his eyes shone with amusement when spoke the words, Hakai Baimukyanen. Droned the doppelganger at the same time when Sirzek spoke the chant. A black beam shot from his fingertips and straight towards his opponent. The two attacks collided with one another that has devastated consequences. How did he know my own created technique? Ran the question through Sirzek's mind before the two attacks gave birth to a dark, destructive sphere that quickly grew into size, pushing the walls apart and Sirzek further away from the Nekosho prison cell. The ceiling caved in and large brick of stone fell with thundering sound on the floor. Dust rose up in the air that obscured their view, which the Satan found annoying and sent an orb of destruction through the curtain of dust that blew up Chirone's prison cell. Coughing, Sirzek pushed himself in a seated position while blinking away the dust from his eyes. Slowly the Satan climbed back on his feet and moved forward, his magic whirled around his hand, ready to be used if his opponent is not defeated. Sirzek. Are you all right, my love? The Crimson Satan turned around to meet the person who has called out to him. For a moment, Sirzek relaxed and sent her a confirming nod that there is nothing wrong with him before his attention turned back to the prison cell. Ajuka suddenly appeared and told me to come to you soon. He said something about a doppelganger. You are right, Graphia. I fought a doppelganger, someone who has the same devil magical ability like me, and that is very dangerous for our people.
Sirzek told her while entering the prison cell of the Nekosho. The Satan's eyes grew in size when he noticed that there is no one in the room. Suddenly the sound of the door moving and slamming shut that finished with a loud clang of the locket. Whirling around, Sirzek noticed that it now is him that is locked behind bars, lunging himself at the bars and his fingers wrapped around the bars. Graphia. Why am I locked in this cell? Demanded the Satan while sending his wife a glare.
Foo. This your punish. Graphia's sentence is cut off when ice gathered around her and froze her in place. Behind the first Graphia, an exact duplicate of Sirzek's wife appeared in the dungeon and glared at the one that is frozen. Sirzek, seeing the cold light shine in his wife's eyes, could only shiver at the punishment that she will give out to him. That doppelganger is right, you will be punished, husband, said his wife. Her magic embraced the cell door that froze at contact. It is time you take your station serious, and not handle this like one of your games. Now follow me and get back to work. Graphia finished her sentence with a flick of her finger at the ice structures. The ice tomb shattered into the devil's annoyance. The duplicate of Graphia vanished in a puff of smoke. On second thought, I'll let you sit here for a while. Her lips curled up in a smile while the crimson devil circle of the pillar house of Gremory lighted up from under her feet. A few moments before Graphia showed up in the crimson Satan shooting his orb of destruction at Kuroka's sensei, Kuroka herself and her sister. The first mentioned just finished his illusion that hid the group under a genjutsu. Kuroka-chan, did you succeed in freeing your sister from her bounds? The black Nekosho glanced up at her sensei, showing that she now held Chiron in her arms. I think that the time has come for us to leave this depressing foundation. Kamui. She sees the air around her distort, and before Kuroka could understand what happened, Kuroka, Chiron, and her sensei vanished from Chirone's former prison cell. Dark, gray stones were replaced by smooth white walls, portraits adorning the halls. "Nya, we are back," Kuroka said, her arms still firmly wrapped around her sister's form. She glanced up at her sensei, a smile firmly plastered on her face. "Thank you, sensei."
No need to thank me, my cute apprentice. Go, take a shower with your sister before you uses the onsen, nay. Answered her sensei with a smile. Kuroka could only nod, lifting her sister in her arms up before she left to clean herself and Chiron. She undressed her sister. Her eyes lost their sparkle when the clues of malnourished showed up while water fell down of their body. Her gentle fingers moved through her sister's short, silky white hair, cleaning them off of that dirt.
"Chiron, I am sorry that you experienced such horrors. Please, forgive me." Kuroka clutched her sister firmly against her chest. Tears ran down her cheeks that mixed together with the water from the shower. She cried louder when she felt her sister return the gesture, and her words, what Chiron said, felt as if a heavy pressure was finally lifted from her shoulders. Kuroka woke up with an adorable yawn. Her eyelashes fluttered open and two orbs of warm golden hazel color were revealed to the world. These beautiful eyes that were once empty and devoid of life because she had left little Chiron behind in the underworld are now filled with life. Her sensei had decided that it was enough and broke Chiron out of prison and brought her to Las Vegas, where her sensei's surrogate sister gave them a sanctuary. Her eyes lowered and the sight of Chiron sleeping next to her brought a smile to her face. Kuroka moved and nuzzled her nose against that of Chiron, who mewed in her sleep. "Time to wake up, we'll be ready and sensei want to speak to us." "Nian, will there be something sweet for breakfast?" yawned little Chiron. Her eyes fluttered open, which revealed a lighter warm golden hazel color than that of her sister. Her white bangs which graced her face made the smaller girl more adorable, and before Chiron knew what happened, Kuroka had clumped the girl. "Nei-san." Kuroka let out a small, cute giggle when she heard Chiron indigently cry and could not help clamp her tighter. "You're just so adorable, Chiron. Nya, I can't believe my little sister can be so cute." "Nyahahaha," laughed the black Nekosho, which was later joined in by her sister. Life was good for the two cat yokai. "Girls, breakfast is ready. I've made my famous pancakes with syrup and bacon." A male voice slipped through the crack under the door of the girls' room. At the man's voice, two pairs of ears twitched in pleasure. One pair of fluffy white cat ears perked up at the mention of pancake plus syrup, which is the young Nekosho most favorable combination for breakfast. Wiggling herself out of her sister's embrace, Chiron fell to the floor and landed in a crouched position like a cat before she rushed out of the room and towards the kitchen. "And no running, Chiron. Wash your hands and wait for your sister." "Nian," exclaimed Chiron, which the black-haired Nekosho could hear from her position in the bathroom, where she brushed her teeth and washed her face and hands. She then moved out of the bathroom and towards the dining area, where she laughed when she entered the kitchen and noticed the face that the white-haired Nekosho pulled. She pouted and her eyes were fixated on all the pancakes on the table. "Up you go, Chiron. Brush your teeth and wash your face and hands, or else I eat all the pancakes while you were away." "Nya," teased Kuroka, and her eyes twinkled mischievously, which made her sister pout more, and not a moment later Hecate squealed, which means that she found it very adorable that her new granddaughter could be so cute. "All right. I won't eat them all if you stop with pouting and do what I have said." "Promised." Chiron tilted her head cutely when she demanded the promise from her sister. A smile appeared on her face when Chiron saw her sister agree with her, and in a blink of an eye, Chiron vanished from the kitchen to wash and brush her teeth. Back in the kitchen, Kuroka's sensei appeared with a place full of bacon and other delicious things for on the pancake. "Ohayu, Kuroka. Did you slept well?" Naruto greeted the raven-haired Nekosho, which smiled at her sensei before he took his seat around the table. Once seated, the man turned his attention to Hecate and greeted her too. "Ohayu, Hecate. How was your night? Did those brats cause any trouble?" Hecate laughed when her surrogate brother mentioned those brats. She knew how annoying those descendants of the gods could be. "The usual. Demigods caused some problems and they ruined a quarter of my casino. but I've sent the gods the bill for all the trouble they caused. Naruto burst out in laughter when his eyes fell on the bill that Hecate conjured midair. I see that you have shoved the bill from our meal to that of the gods. I wonder if they will notice these little numbers that you've added, grinned the white-haired figure and then brought a piece of his pancake to his mouth, and ate. So, who has your list at the moment in his or her hands? Let's see, Hecate mused while Kuroka followed the conversation with the curiosity of a cat. Her amber-golden eyes followed the interesting pattern of her hand, which was trailed by a wisp of magic. A haze appeared that floated above the paper, which showed that it was Hermes, god of thieves and messenger of the Greek gods. Ah, it is the flying pervert of the gods, in chaos name. She glanced a look at her brother in all but blood. If I ever get my hands on him, I will magically castrate him. That god is almost just as worse than the dude you have told me about, a certain hermit. Oh, look, brother, the flying pervert start reading. At the floating fortress, Mount Olympus, Hermes, god of thieves and messenger of the Greek pantheon, blinked when a parchment appeared in front of him. Unfolding the letter, Hermes read aloud. Lord of the sea, Poseidon, king of the gods, Zeus. I've come with unpleasant news. A few weeks ago, demigods of your pantheon has caused untold damage to my casino, the Lotus Hotel. To explain, a certain demigod that goes by the name of Percy Jackson, son of Poseidon, and Annabeth Chase, a daughter of Athena, and a satyr that goes by the name of Grover Underwear has entered my casino, which is for mortal and immortal that are over the age of 18, which they aren't. They have entered without any signed document of their parent that they may enter this place, and hereby has entered illegally under the pretense of being off age. I believe that a certain messenger of the god has provided them with an illegal document. Back to what they have damaged. Percy Jackson has destroyed several of my poker tables, play automatons, ruined the uniforms of my workers with red wine, which is a terrible task to bring it back to white, consumed alcoholic beverage that cost easily a fortune, which will be added to your bill. For Ms. Chase, for her can be said the same with the exception of the poker tables. However, it was she that stole a car from the Lotus Casino, which also will be added to the bill. And as for Mr. Underwear, he has molested the statue of Fortuna which held the pearl. It was not only her statue that was molested. Mr. Underwear the satyr has done that also to several of my workers. For the good of my name and my company, I expect a good compensation, or else I will lead any crossroad that you gods and their children take to end up in an early trip to Tartarus or meet their uncle Hades. With a pleasant farewell for now, Hecate, goddess of magic and crossroads. P.S. Check the insert for the bill. Hermes finished the message which was added to the bill. When his eyes shifted towards the other parchment, which is the bill, a number of zeros that was on it caused his eyes to bulge out and threw it towards Zeus as if the object was a bomb, flying through Zeus' domain. Both items landed in front of his throne, which caused the ruler of Olympus to grumble, and thunder roared in the far distance. Hermes, you worthless idiot. Is this how you bring your king a message? Throwing them at the feet of his throne. Roared the king of the Greek gods, and at Zeus, outburst lightning flashed through the darkened sky. Dark blue eyes that looked like thunderclouds and lightning seeped out. If your action is not justified for throwing these letters at my feet, you, Hermes, will be punished. Now, let the king see what caused you to be so unbehaving. A flourish gesture of his hand which caused the wind to twist into itself, and a small tornado grew under the two objects and brought it to his hand. Ah, 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 ah. Poseidon. Athena. Explain yourself. How comes that we must pay 13 billion of galleons to Lady Hecate? What? Shouted the rivals, Poseidon and Athena together, when they heard the ridiculous amount. When the rivals heard one another voice, they turned their heads and glared at one another with lightning in their eyes. This is your child's fault. Another burst of thunder could be heard in the distance when Zeus let himself heard. Be quiet, Poseidon, Athena. I don't care which child fault this is, but you two will pay me back that 13 billion that I must pay out of the royal vaults that are rightly mine. I don't care how you will pay me back. Am I understood? Athena glared with dismay at Poseidon before she willed herself to calm a bit and turned to her father. Father, I believe that there is a justified case for that ridiculous price. If you let me summon my daughter to Olympus to explain herself to us, after that, we can make plans to decrease the number of zeros and promise Lady Hecate something else that is equal to her request. Thunder resounded in the distance, and the Lord of the Sky, Zeus, could understand the thought process of his daughter. Slowly the king retook his throne and glanced at his brother. What is your words on this, brother of mine? For once, I agree with Athena. Because of her quick thinking, she has probably secured our riches and perhaps future problems with Lady Hecate, especially if the news of what comes from the islands in the Atlantic Oceans are true. A civil war between two sides of Hecate chosen people. What do you mean, Poseidon? Zeus questioned his brother, who told him about a civil war that has played several years on British soil. That a child has vanquished a self-proclaimed Dark Lord and now the hidden society is at peace, or that is what other beliefs. Very well. If this mortal that has defied Hades for so long, and if the request of Lady Hecate that we must help these people, we will. Hearing this, everyone sighed and Zeus addressed the whole council. I want everyone to keep a more watchful eye over Hecate's chosen people. I want to know what happens out there in the world of mortals while I send Hermes to the Lotus Hotel to see if she accept our debts. Hecate laughed when she heard the king of the Greek gods. I knew they would never pay such a high sum of money, and now I get soon a contract that is worthy of a lot of favors. However, that news about my chosen people in Britain is a whole different story. There is now peace in your people's world. However, we can find out what has happened to the child that has vanquished the dark magic user, but I let that in your capable hands, as I will visit New York with Kuroka and Sharon. I think they will need some experience with fighting, and perhaps I can resurrect a certain someone, which I want to use one favor of you to let this person come under my care. Naruto told his plans to his surrogate sister with a grin plastered on his face. Hecate focused on her brother, eyeing him, and then laughed. All right, you can use that little favor, dear brother of mine. Now, off you go. New York awaits you. A magic circle appeared under her brother, Kuroka, and Sharon, which grew in brightness, and when the light reached its peak, it suddenly vanished and the three were gone from the Lotus Hotel. As for me, I think it becomes high time to see what is happening in Britain, and Hecate vanished with a twirl of arcane magic. Naruto glanced around as his eyes took in the view. Taking a step forward to balance himself, and the young-looking man leaned over the edge of the Empire State Building and glanced down to the streets below. It seems Sis has us dropped off close to Olympus entrance. Not that we will use her anytime sooner. Well, girls, I present to you, New York of the United States, the place where you can buy all your comics. Or see the Statue of Liberty, but more importantly, this place is the current main vesting of the Greeks. Here rules the Greeks. However, other pantheons are here too, like the Egyptian pantheon, who has their gnome vested here and worship the Egyptian gods, and a little further from New York, namely in Boston, we do have the Norse pantheons. At this moment, the United States are heavily influenced by the gods. Kuroka's eyes widened at the news. Right at this moment, she and her sister are at the epicenter of different pantheons. Neon, sensei, why are we here? Isn't it a bit too dangerous for us to enter their territories? Naruto burst out in laughter while he guided Sharon and Kuroka towards the elevator, which opened for them, pushing the button that would lead the elevator to the lobby. Kuroka-sensei grinned at the catgirls. Those kids that sit high on their thrones. Ha, don't make me laugh. They are no threat to me, and if they try something then I let their mother know. Their mother, NYA? Sharon asked with a tilt of her head, which made the white-haired Nekosho very adorable. Naruto crouched down and picked the young girl up and placed her on his neck before he straightened back up. The three heard a bell and the door slid open. Yes, Rhea, a titan and mother of the gods, unlike her brethren, she is not locked up in Tartarus and walks freely the earth. Rhea has found a nice place in Japan that is surrounded by flora and fauna on the island Hokkaido. I've visited the Titaness many times, and when we gather, stories are shared, Naruto said while guiding the three of them through the streets of Olympus. A warning to you two, let the talking over to me. We would not want them to poke in our business, nay. We're no strangers to love, you know the rules and so do I. Pearl White with light blue flower pattern eyes twitched when his ears were assaulted by this music. A full commitment's what I am thinking of, you wouldn't get this from any other guy. A dark miasma oozed off from his shoulders and into the air like fire. I just want to tell you how I am feeling. Gotta make you understand. Kuroka looks up, tilting her head to make eye contact with her sensei. NYA, Naruto-sensei. That singer has such a dull voice, it's so awful. She then suddenly smiled and her eyes brightened, but I like those promises that he made. Do you? Naruto rubbed the scalp of her head as he smiled down at her. I do like those promises, and even if you haven't promised me the things mentioned in this song, you never gave up on me, even when the whole underworld was against me. You made my tears disappear and made me smile when you reunited me with my sister, Kuroka said, and she smiled at the white cat form of her sister which was draped around her sensei neck and snoring cutely. You didn't lie to me and healed me from my pain, NYA. It was nothing, Kuroka. Once I took you in as my apprentice, you became something more, a special someone, and importantly you became a member of my family. I did these things to make you smile and because I wanted to meet Sharon. Naruto's large hand gently landed on the white cat's head and rubbed gently between the ears. She is just so cute. Sharon spun softly under the gentle care of her sister's sensei. A ping sounds through the elevator box until it came to a halt, and a second later the doors slid open. Once the doors were gone and replaced by the view outside the elevator box, Kuroka's jaw sunk towards the floor. Behind the elevator doors were plains and hills of fresh, healthy green grass that stretched as far the eyes could see. There were many gardens with exotic trees, plants and small creatures that flew around in the air. On several hilltops were temples, 12 of them with each the decoration that shows to which god or goddess the temple belongs. Close your mouth, Kuroka. We wouldn't want Hermes to drop something suspicious in your mouth, especially with his call for pranks. She quickly closed her mouth at the warning of her sensei, and Kuroka took a step out of the elevator box. One small step for the Nekosho race, Kuroka mumbled. One large step for my faction in the Greek territorium. Lightning and thunder rumbled into the air when her feet landed on the first golden brick of the long road that leads towards the ecclesia that stands there in the distance. Neon! Exclaimed the cat girl when lightning surged towards her, only for a hand to grasp the element tightly. Zeus. Kuroka heard her sensei below. You have yourself earned some punishments, that I promise you for trying to attack my apprentice. In the distance, the thunder sounds less threatening, and she was sure that the temple of Zeus shivered on its place. Stay there in your throne room and don't you dare to run away. She felt a hand gently land on her shoulder and she looked up at her sensei. Don't worry about these silly little children. Kuroka heard her sensei laugh. I am sure that they soon will be punished. Besides the heavy bill from my sister. In the distance, the black-haired cat girl could see rain clouds gather above New York, and a second later heavy rain poured down upon the mortals. Will you punish them, sensei, nya? Came the innocent question from Kuroka. However, if you looked closely at her eyes, you would have noticed that her playful cat side sparkled brightly. She quickly wraps her arms around her sensei's right arm and buried the limb between her growing breasts. Laughter escaped Naruto's throat and he looks up into the sky. Maybe a little for all the trouble my little thunderer has caused, especially his brothers, he told her and guided Kuroka along the golden brick road towards their destination. In the lightning god throne room where all the gods and goddess of the Greek pantheon gather for their meetings, Zeus, Greek god king, shivered in his throne. Once again his paranoid has reared its ugly head. What in my brother's name caused me to throw my lightning bolt at the apprentice of him? Zeus voiced out quietly as he shook his head with hidden fear. I told you many times before that all those paranoid crap of yours should be curbed in because it has only caused problems for us. His wife and sister, Hera, coldly told him in such a low voice that he must strain his ears to hear her. But honey, I cannot help it. Zeus suddenly yelped when his beloved wife pulled hard on his ear and almost lifted him off from his throne. Oh, all those excuses of yours, Zeus. Hera bellowed and her husband's shouts increased in volume. We visited more than enough time the psychiatric for helping you in controlling it better, yet you refuse to do the training every day. But honey, these pieces of training are so boring. Yelped the king of the gods, when suddenly the doors were slammed open and Naruto, Kuroka, and Sharon, who is still in her cat form on her sister's sensei shoulders, entered the throne room. I am saved from my wife, only to meet the Nemean lion. Naruto waved at a few gods and goddesses with a smile. Ah, Zeus. I see you have annoyed your wife again. How many times did this happen? Too many times, Naruto, Hades said as the god of the underworld appeared from a shadow, but I came to Olympus to ask for your help in obtaining a soul that will one day break the balance between that of mortals and our world. Naruto glanced at Hades and nodded firmly. If you don't mind, I come to you after I've finished my business with your brothers. His attention turned from Hades towards the rest of the assembled members of the Greeks' pantheon. Hephaestus, it has been a while since we have seen each other. The vault lies more at my side than at yours, Naruto, you know how I am. Hephaestus laughed. My place is at my forges and my work is never ending, but seeing you again is good, I think. Yay, it's good to see you again, Hephaestus. Naruto turned his attention towards the next person, Aphrodite, still lovely and beautiful as when the day I first saw you under that waterfall in Greece so long a time ago. Aphrodite's cheeks gained a healthy blush. She giggled and jumped off her throne and skipped towards him. Always good to see such a handsome man like you. She wrapped him in a tight embrace. I can see in your future that you once again will be surrounded by beautiful and smart women whose heart are stolen by you. Aphrodite released him, but not before winking at Kuroka, and then returned to her throne. A smile was visible on Naruto's face and his attention turned towards the two troublemakers of the pantheon. Hermes, you troublesome thief, and Apollo, are you still not over yet about my last prank? Apollo narrowed his eyes and crossed his arms in front of his bare chest. How could you call that a prank? You booby-trapped my temple in which I could not take a step without getting wet, painted pink or losing Teddy, my plushy bear which my sister used for target practice for her huntresses. The sun god's eyes suddenly grew in sizes when the laughter of Hermes reached him. Oh, chaos. I cannot believe this, you still sleep with that old Ursa Major plushie? Crowded Hermes out, and the god of thieves and messenger fell off from his throne and rolled over the throne room. Teddy was a good target, something that inspired many of my huntresses to improve on their archery skills. A slightly amused voice cut Hermes' laughter and everyone turned to the goddess of the hunt. I think, she conjured a parchment out of thin air. that my lieutenant has the highest scores in hitting the bear's balls. Apollo's sun-kissed skin withered when he heard what his sister's hunters had done to Teddy. You let Zoe neuter Teddy, exclaimed the god of the sun before his eyes rolled up and he lost consciousness. Hello Artemis. May I say that you did a wonderful task in helping me pranking your younger brother. Naruto quickly praised the woman, only for Apollo to exclaim that he is the older twin. A whistling sound and then a thud was heard, and between the sun god's legs, a silver arrow had sprouted that quickly withered the courage of Apollo away like snow in the sun. I thought you would have finally accepted me being the older of us two, or must I call our mother to remind you of who brought you into the world? Artemis retorted, and a wolfish grin appeared on her angelic face before her attention turned to Naruto. Hi, Naruto. My help in pranking Apollo was mine and the huntress's pleasure, especially the tournament who could hit a bewitched Teddy the most. She smiled at the man. My oldest huntress, Zoe Nightshade, send you her thanks for the new bow and equipment that you presented her when she won the tournament. She deserved her price, he said while ignoring the whining of a certain brother of the moon, but pleasantly aside, where is Hestia? I thought she had become one of the 13 Olympians. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, which are the three major gods of the Greek pantheon, started to sweat like a waterfall. Unexpectedly, it wasn't Hades that spoke first. Poseidon did. It was Zeus' idea to place his son, Dionysus, on Hestia's throne. I had nothing to do with his ideas. The god of the ocean had thrown Zeus under the imaginary bus. Zeus' eyes glared with lightning at his older brother. You traitor. Ah, 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 yelped the god of lightning again. Hera. Hera it is. Huh. A rightfully feminine furious voice sounds through the throne room. My daughter was not stern enough in taming you, son. Mom, mommy, Zeus gasped as he tried to lessen the pain in his ear. Mother. Hades and Poseidon exclaimed, with the latest jumping off his throne and hiding behind his elder brother Dark Cloak. This is an unexpected surprise visit. Mother, laughed the sea god nervously and stayed behind Hades, which tried to move away from his younger brother who used him as a shield. Rhea, titan of motherhood and family and mother of the three major Greek gods, glared at them. Yes, it equally surprised me that I was never invited on Olympus despite the major gods being my sons and daughters, as did the surprise call of my friend, which is your surrogate uncle. She glared at her children, who were more times invited in your temples than I can count. I forgot, mommy. Rhea turned towards her youngest son and pulled harder on his ear before releasing him. Zeus sighed, only to see his mother lowering herself on his throne with her hand extended in a stern look. Just hand it over, son, she called gently, only she didn't fool anyone in the room at how angry she actually is. The resounding cry was heard when he flew through the air, all because of his uncle kicking his ass, and Zeus landed on his mother's lap, and surprisingly his robes were open which showed his cheeks. My son, do know what I do to you hurt me more than it does you. Rhea's hand lifted in the air before landing with a resounding slap on Zeus' buttocks. This action was repeated a few times before it finally stopped, and Zeus' glorious buttocks were now burning red. Now off you go and sit in the darkest corner and think about your errors. Meanwhile, I will keep a hold on your toy, and you only get it back in dire situations. Zeus sulked towards a corner, tears streaming down his face. Yes, mommy. Now that my son is re-educated and rethink his sins, which one of them is restoring my daughter place on the council, she sends a stern glare to her other sons and daughters, which all nodded fearfully, because if they forgot, she hooked her fingers in the air for indicating their loss of memories. It would not be I that will deal with the punishments, but you will all be sent to Naruto boot camps for 10 years. Chaos erupted in the Olympians' throne room when everyone jumped up, promising that they would restore Hestia place on the council. It warms my heart to see everyone so united in bringing justice for their sister and aunt. She pinked a tear away from her eyes before she smiled at her best friend. Thank you, Naruto, for calling me, but I am sure that there were other topics that you would like to talk with my son, who is currently busy thinking of his past mistakes. She eyed her youngest son. I am sure that Hades and Poseidon with their sisters and the other members can easily handle his affairs for the day. Right. Let us get down to business. As you know, Mount Olympus is currently 13 billion in debt with the Lotus Casino. A wail was heard from a dark corner of Olympus, from which Hades laughed cruelly at the torture of his brother. Hecate granted me to void 1.5 bill each time a favor was granted to me. What kind of favors would these be? Poseidon questioned his uncle in all but blood. My first favor would be for my apprentice, Kuroka, who is a Nekosho and had just escaped the underworld that is under control of the devils. As we commonly know, Christianity thinks that their law is absolute, but they forget that there are many other pantheons and stronger beings in the universe. They think if a stray devil escape their grasp that they have the right and command that the other pantheons kill these people, from which some of them are forced into servitude. Hades had raised a throne from the floor, a simple one with a lot of bones. If I understand your dilemma correctly, You ask us to spread to word that you want these stray devils to get a legal proceeding to see if they are innocent or not. Correctly, old friend. Kuroka here escaped her abusive king by killing him when they wanted to test experiments on her younger sister Sharon. The devils wanted to know if they could steal chakra to make themselves stronger, explained Naruto. They have no regards for forcing anyone into servitude and sees any race below their own. What I want from you is that the news of what happened to Kuroka spread and that any assault on yokai, humans, demigods etc., to get these beings in servitude is illegal and can be met with war from the respective faction. Hades looked up in understanding. I agree with you, Naruto. If these devils ever try to force my children or any demigods under their servitude, then I, Hades, will make their life a literal hell. You have my vote. As you have mine. I would not want to see a prince of the sea under the control of a lesser being like those devils. Poseidon joined his brother. Artemis stepped off her throne and glanced around the room. My huntresses and I met many times these fallen followers of biblical God, trying to force my children that I took under my care as their own. Many times my hands were tied, but now with this opportunity, I can protect my daughters. You have my vote, Naruto. Aphrodite was next, followed by Apollo and the other gods, agreeing to place this new law and spreading the words that any other pantheon adopt these laws as well. Rhea addressed Naruto again after Athena had written a scroll for the other pantheons of their plans for the devils. Are there more favors you ask for? She asked the man. I would like to have Talia Grace under Artemis' care as one of her huntresses. Rhea had a confused expression of who this girl might be. Talia Grace is your granddaughter by Zeus. She fled 7 years ago from a group of monsters that were sent by Hades because Zeus had broken his own law. Rhea sends her eldest son a glare who cringed under her terrifying eyes, but Zeus used his lightning bolt to transform his daughter into a tree that watches over the demigods of Camp Half-Blood. Her glare was transferred to Zeus, who had curled himself into a ball when he felt his mother's eyes on him. My second wish is to make her immortal under Artemis' watch, which would let the prophecy fall on the only son of Poseidon. Granted, Rhea immediately said and cut off her children, especially Poseidon, who wanted to protest, only for his mother shaking her head. My last would be, I want Artemis and her huntresses help in Britain. Now Naruto got many confused looks from the gods and goddesses around him. I know Artemis very well and would like her help in training my two pupils Kuroka and Sharon in archer and wildlife. But more importantly, my sister had pleaded me for my help in protecting the hidden magical world. His eyes glanced at any god and goddess present, but they settled on the goddess herself that would decide if she wanted to. Thanks for watching.